It's been late out. What? That was I think it's 13, so good. It took us 2 to 4 weeks.
Wow, look at that sitting right up front.
Okay, Melissa, you could go ahead whenever you would like. Just a reminder to those sitting at the main tables that all those microphones are on. And so we can hear conversations over the Zoom room. So if somebody else is speaking, I would ask that you keep paper shuffling to a minimum so that we can hear what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. I'm going to do a quick, let's just start first. I'm going to open the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting. It's a special meeting of the trustees tonight at 6:31 p.m. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Astral. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so you guys are actively working now as representation of Hinckley Township, and I appreciate your service. And I can't tell you what a fantastic opportunity this is for me. I'm so excited to hear from the people of Hinckley, and I know that you are too, based on your application. So thank you for submitting them. Thank you for being a part of this process. We value each and every one of you. I'm going to go through a roll call. Paul Easterling.
Here.
Maria Griffiths.
Here.
MD. Lou Benson.
Here.
David Yatsko.
Here.
Richard Pearl.
Here.
Paul O'Neill.
Here.
Gary Woolney.
Here.
Brian Cadam.
Here.
Jacob Studer.
Here.
Kara Pay.
Here.
Kenton Grimes.
Here.
Chris Kalina has an excused absence for this evening. He is on virtually, however. David Manley.
Here.
You are zoning commission representative. Myself and our alternates, Tom Schrader.
Here.
Cindy Engelman.
Here.
And Jim Bylowski.
Here.
And I'm sorry if I'm terrible at your names. I apologize in advance. I will do my best to do a good job at them. Just really quick, I wanted to read what a comprehensive plan is for the public. Comprehensive plan is a committee's blueprint for the future. It is the vision of what a community wants to become and the steps needed to realize that vision. Specifically, the plan achieves the following: documents and illustrates what the community looks like today and what direction it wants to go in the future. It includes assessments of existing resources and issues, projections of future conditions and needs, and consideration of collective goals and desires. The comprehensive plan is a method of translating the community's values into specific actions. It is a policy guide and provides a framework for future land use, decision-making, and the physical development of the community. It also considers and plans for important social, natural resource, and economic values of the community. Covers an approximate time frame of 10 to 20 years. It is assumed that the shorter-term views will keep it current with the changing needs of the community. Is closely integrated with other municipal documents and initiatives. The comprehensive plan is not a zoning ordinance, a subdivision regulation, a budget, or a capital improvement program. It is meant to provide the framework for the development of these implementation tools. And this is from our 2014 comprehensive plan guide. So I just wanted to read that to everyone. I think it would be beneficial if we just had each one of you, again, state your name and how long you've lived in Hinckley, and maybe tell a little bit about why you decided to apply for this position. We'll start with you, Mr. O'Neill.
Paul O'Neill, and I moved to Hinckley in 2002. And my wife grew up here in Hinckley, that's why I'm here. And I decided to join the steering committee just because I see all these Keep Hinckley rural signs all over the place. I know that's a big wedge issue or issue of interest. I'm the owner of Weymouth Farms and Orchards, so I'm trying very hard to do all that rural type of stuff. And there's a lot of, I guess a lot of people really don't understand what rural is and how hard it is to do. And the impact that everybody in the subdivisions and single family homes, is it fair that everybody that's in single family homes is going to be dictating what people that are involved in agriculture in the town? So I think I understand agriculture better than a lot of the other people in the town. And I'm here to put my 2 cents in.
Sorry? Yeah, if you guys can speak up loudly for the microphones or move them as needed. These are all portable. That one is.
My name is Jim Bialowski. I've been here 16 years now. Moved here when my kids were old enough to, my first was getting into high school, wanted them in the Highland school districts. Why am I involved? Because I care. I've gotten more and more involved with the meetings the longer I've been here. Probably the last 7 to 8 years, spent a lot of time coming to not only the zoning meetings, but the trustees meeting, learning about the township. At times, sticking my 2 cents in where I felt strongly on an issue, but I care about the direction where we're moving. Took a look in detail over the last comprehensive plan and see some definite opportunities for potential enhancement going forward. Very active in listening on what's going on out there and then forming my opinions and then also working to understand what's important to everybody else. I hope my kids at one point choose to live here. 2 of the 3 have moved out already. My daughter's a teacher out in Strongsville, and I've grown to love this area and plan on continuing to be here for a very long period of time.
And excuse me, I'm Paul Easterling. I think I might be a short timer to Hinckley. I've been here for a year and a half. My wife and I moved from the East Coast, although we're both native Ohioans, but our careers took us out east for 17 years. But she had an opportunity to come back to Ohio to work for Nestle up in Solon. And we decided we wanted to be back closer to our family. I'm from Northeast Ohio, from Norton originally, and went to the University of Akron, worked at the University of Akron for a number of years, but then worked at different universities on the East Coast. She's from the Columbus area, but we settled in Hinckley to be midway between the Solon area and then easy access down to Columbus to her family, but then most of my family had moved to Medina County. So we wanted to be close by, and the community seemed like one that we would enjoy. I remember my time here at the reservation, coming out here when I was younger, but we moved into, because we're not farmers, we are more suburban dwellers. We moved into the trails at Redwood Falls, just up the street here off of 303 in the new legacy development. One of the reasons I sought to join the committee is because I want to get more involved with the community. There's been a little bit of animosity, I think, towards my community, particularly, and some of the other new developments over the last several years where we haven't felt a friendly reception. And so I wanted to get involved with the community, get to know my neighbors outside of my direct development, and try to assuade them that we're not here to change things. We just want to live in a nice community.
Great. I'm Chris Studer's husband, Jake. That's how most people know me. Yeah. She's obviously very involved in the community, and I am in some respects, but I spent most of my business career here in Northern Ohio, lived in North Royalton, Strongsville, Olmsted Falls, Hinckley for the last 18 years. Through my business career, I was involved with Middleburg Heights and building, business activity going on there, same thing in North Royalton. And I've just had a lot of experience, I think, throughout my career in all phases of business and development and so forth. So I think Hinckley's a great place. Love being here. I love the location, and we just are very involved. And I think maybe somewhere along the way I can contribute a few things. So.
I'm Gary Walney. I've lived in Hinckley for 40 years. We built our house in the late 70s, and my family has been here since the 1930s. So I grew up coming out to Hinckley, and my wife and I raised our 4 sons here. We love the community. I love the community, and I saw this as an opportunity to give back, to be a part of it, to help, I say, craft the future of what we want it to look like. There's been a lot of change, and it looks like there's more change to come. So this seemed to be a good opportunity to get involved and do that.
My name's Dave Yasko. I was born here, raised here, went to school here. I was on the fire department for a good bit here. We farm here in Hinckley and around. And I just thought it'd be a good idea to put my 2 cents in here and see what it's all about. Yeah.
I'm Brian Cadnam. My family moved to Hinckley in 1957. We live up on the Hinckley Ridge State Road. And in the past, I grew up growing, my family grew sweet corn and vegetable crops. And the family farm is still there. And I may possibly be the only full-time farmer here. Maybe Weymouth Farms. Okay, there's 2 of us. We should sit together.
Save me a seat over there.
Next meeting. Obviously, as a landowner, it's important to know what's going on in the community. I want everyone to know that my intentions are not to develop our property as long as I'm able to farm. But obviously, it's a valuable asset that the bank and I have worked hard to own. So we need to pay attention to what's going on. I go all the way back to when Buzzard Sunday was originated. I can remember in first grade being assigned to make pictures of buzzards. So yeah, it's been a good community, a great place to live, and I want to keep it that way. Thank you.
I'm Maria Griffiths, and we moved to Hinckley back in '97, so not nearly as long. But we moved out here because we like the rural community, the space. We have our 5+ acres. And likewise, even in the last 20 odd years, we've seen it change, and want to be a part of directing that change into a way that's good for Hinckley as a whole. I've been involved on the county level, on the library board, on the Lodi Hospital Medina executive committees, and I just wanted to become more local with my interactions.
Can I just say ditto?
Same name too?
Well, no, I was gonna. Nice one. My name's Cindy Engelman. I lived in Hinckley for 10 years, and we bought the property as retirement because we retired. And it's like you, it's over 5 acres. And so we enjoy the space, the ruralness of the community. And certainly in the last 5 years, I think the changes have really taken place where when we think of rural, we think of farmland, ranch land, if you want to call it that, horses. And I remember when I moved in because of all the property, and I said, oh, I love horses. The rumor was I was going to have horses on the property. Oh, that's cool. That's great. Well, that wasn't going to happen, but the idea of being near in a community like that was very appealing. And so certainly want to be able to be part of whatever is going to be coming down the line for Hinckley Township and getting other people's input so that the right direction can be set so that, we don't lose that rural feeling. And what is rural, I think, is a real good starting point too. So.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kara Pei. I grew up in Granger. I went to Highland. My husband and I both graduated from Highland in 94. We both, we went to prom together. We've been together ever since. My grandmother-in-law was Laverne Pei, and she graduated Hinckley High School in 1938. So the Pei name's been around for a while. I married into it. And I just thought that my kids are, I have a senior, a junior, and a freshman, and they're almost out of the house. And so I thought it'd be a great time to give back and start giving to the community and trying to figure out what everyone's thoughts are moving forward. I live on Westwind Trace. We have about 8 acres, almost 8 acres. And I just like the idea of rural, but I do see a lot of the, I wouldn't say mistreatment, but maybe the, some of the comments towards our other, I think the smaller, newer districts, you know what I'm talking about. I see a lot of that. And I just think that maybe we all just need to work together. There's a lot of polarization. And I think that maybe if we all could just communicate and come up with a better plan, that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Schrader. I've lived in Hinckley now about 8 years. Grew up in Northeast Ohio. My wife and I built our retirement home here predominantly to get out of the heavy tax burden of Cuyahoga County. I'm just interested in helping out the community any way I can. I moved here predominantly to get away from that tax burden. I was living in Broadview Heights, so it was reasonably close. But since being here, I've discovered that I really enjoy the community. And I think that there's opportunities for the citizenship to come together and have some direction that's good for everyone. Not just one small contingency, whether that be predominantly residential or predominantly agricultural, or, I think there needs to be a blend. A good urban planning has a blend of many uses. So hoping to be part of that.
I'm Dave Manley. I've been here just about 43 years. We've raised our kids here. I'm currently a member of the zoning board of Hinckley Township and represent the current zoning book, I guess would be a better way to put it. I spent 26 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals and involved with a number of other situations, both in the township and in the county. And last but not least, I served on 3 previous boards of this nature and putting together the 3 previous plans over the 30-some years.
If you have any suggestions along the way, don't be afraid to speak up. Thank you.
I think Jen might want me to have that microphone a little closer. I'm Richard Pearl. My wife and I bought land here, bought an 1.5 acre lot in 1985, primarily because of my childhood memories of the Metro Park Reservation. And of course, because of the Highland school system, we wanted to raise a family here. We bought another lot, another vacant property next to ours, another 1.5 acres. And to the south of that were 3 more 1.5 acre lots on the corner of Bellis and King Road. We anticipated all those lots would eventually be, houses would be built on them. Over the last 4 years, I've been to almost every trustee meeting, many of the BZA meetings and the zoning meetings. And my interest is in how this all fits together. I'm not convinced that the comprehensive plan is broken. I think a lot of what we're hearing as far as the senior housing, the conservative developments, bringing water to town, all these things I think can be fixed just through simple changes in the zoning. But I'm very welcoming of everybody here and to hear what you have to say about the comprehensive plan and if it needs correcting. Thank you.
I'm Owen Benson. I'm a 50-year member of this community. Moved here with my wife. My son was born here, went to Brunswick. Sorry to say that, but they did. But it was better to live in. I live in up at Venice Corners, and that was a choice because I could make phone calls without having party lines and many other niceties that you're used to. I was like Dave. He and I did the first plan way back in the last century, the first comprehensive plan, and that was a great undertaking with Sid Welch from Brunswick. And I thought we had something that was pretty good. I'm also responsible in part for Aldi, because when Aldi came out here and wanted to build here, we were afraid that they might be annexed or want to be annexed to Brunswick. So we moved heaven and earth to have our zoning more flexible for them at the corner. In fact, unfortunately, whether you people like it or not, we could have had an Aldi store at the corner had we wanted it, but I didn't really think it was the place to be. They had a business plan, and that's the way it went, and they knew where they wanted to go, and everything has been good. Aldi's been very nice to us. They were very nice to us then. I love Hinckley. In fact, we're about to buy three plots in Beach Cemetery. So I plan on being here for a long time.
Well, we appreciate all of your service and the diversity of the group, and that's why you were chosen. And just a quick recap of how that went about. Your applications came in, we numbered them, we redacted all of the names, and then they went to the 3 trustees. After they were done with the 3 trustees, we each chose 15, and our 15 collectively went over to the police station, where the police chief and Sergeant Schroll worked together to comb through our selection. And out of 98 applications, I'm still shocked to say that the first 5 of you were chosen by all 3 trustees. The second set of 5 of you were chosen by at least 2 trustees. And the last set of 5 was just a mismatch of stuff. So thank you for being here. We appreciate your time and your talent and your service to our community. Really quick, there is a copy of the 2015 comprehensive plan here for each one of you. So would you mind taking one and passing it down so everyone has a copy of the original plan that we're working off of? Just to remind you, this is an audit of that plan. We're not redoing the plan. We are just auditing it. And also, because you are a committee serving for Hinckley Township, any notes that you take are subject to a records request. So either write neatly or don't take notes at all. That's my suggestion. And lastly, we had said in the emails that we were going to try to plan the next 3 meetings. So I'd like to kind of tackle that now before we hear from the public, if that's okay with you guys. I'm going to get my calendar out, so bear with me. Now, I had mentioned in the email that our fiscal officer, Martha Catherwood, will be putting on a financial meeting. And it's literally a recap of how the finances in Hinckley Township work, our government agency. And reason we held off on this was so that our comprehensive plan steering committee could be a part of it and listen to it and actively hear and understand how that works with the revenues and appropriations and all of the things that go with it. She has told me that she is available, and you don't all have to attend, but if you can, we would appreciate it. Either the 12th or the 19th of February. Those are both Saturdays. And we don't have to make these decisions today, but I just figured we could at least start throwing some dates out. So February 12th or 19th.
Was there a time?
There is not a time. It's a Saturday, so I imagine probably about 9 or 10 a.m. That way we can do it via Zoom as well, and everyone can listen in from the public. It will be a very important thing for our public to understand as well. Does anyone have a preference of date, or do you want to get back to me?
The 19th would be better for me. I'll be out of town the 12th.
Okay.
I'm out of town the 19th, so it's supposed to be better.
Yeah, I'll do either one.
No preference.
By a show of hands, 12.
No preference.
I don't care.
That's kind of a mixed match, isn't it? All right, we'll go with the 12th.
I'm no preference either. So.
Okay, thank you. And I will let her to determine the time, and I will be in contact with you about what time she chooses. So that is the financial meeting. Now, when you guys applied, I told you we were going to meet twice a month in that application. We probably will not meet twice a month, according to our OHM advisor. He has advised us tonight to listen to the public, and that is it. We really won't be able to answer questions. We really won't be able to interact too much unless you have a question for this person who's standing up and delivering their perception of what Hinckley Township should be. With that said, how does the last week of each month work for you?
Perfect.
It works well?
Fine for me.
Yep.
Because I'm tentatively looking at February 22nd. I'm trying to avoid BZA and trustee meetings and zoning commission meetings. March 29th and April 26th. So those are my tentative dates, and I'll go through them again so you have them all. So February 12th is the financial meeting.
Need your pencil?
February 22nd with OHM, which is again our advisors for they're our planning commission, or our planning group. March 29th and April 26th. So you guys look at your calendars, get back to me and let me know what's best for you. At this time, I'm going to have the public come up and interact with you. As I said, any notes you take are subject to a records request. Please bear that in mind. And each person that steps up, we are going to do a 3-minute time limit, which will be timed by Trustee Asherle. So we ask that you stay within that 3 minutes just to be respectful of everyone's time.
We have one more member.
You can, yeah, you didn't get up and introduce yourself.
Oh, what is your name?
Ken Grimes.
You know what? I did a roll call and I thought I had
You did
everybody.
get me, yes, but I didn't sit where I was supposed to sit.
Do you want to sit a little closer?
Sure,
to
I can
the
hang out with
table?
everybody.
I'm so sorry. And
No,
let's hear
no.
from you really quick. Thank you for that, Trustee Asherle.
Yeah, so my name is Kenton Grimes. Moved to town back in '02. We built a house off of Stony Hill, and kind of a dream of mine. I grew up, if you guys are familiar with Honey Hut ice cream. So the original one in Old Brooklyn, I grew up there, and we would always take State Road down here to the Parkway. And so it was something that we just did on weekends. And I remember growing up telling my dad, I'm going to live out here. And then happenstance showed up, divine, serendipity, whatever you want to call it. I met my wife, who was a resident of Hinckley. We got married, obviously, and then things worked out where we were able to build out here. And so this is just even though we've been here for a while, I've got 6 kids in the Highland School District, or 5 currently, 1 who's graduated. And then, so this is kind of, I've done a lot of, supporting the community in raw, RAH kind of volunteering and things like that. But this is the first time in a government steering kind of way, trying to just be a little more productive and helping into the community in some ways. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. And I'm sorry that I missed you.
No, it's okay. I was incognito. I was hanging.
And now you can have Honey Hut and the lake.
Now I have my
Combined.
yeah. So it's, Brunswick, nice.
Okay, so we're going to open the floor to the audience. And we just ask that you step up to the podium and state your name, address, and any comments or perspective thoughts for the future.
And do not be shy.
Man rush.
Oh, what the heck, if nobody else is doing it, I will. My name's Jerry Walrath. I live at 2150 Hinckley Hills Road. Excuse me. I was on the zoning commission here for 22 years. I participated in at least 2 or 3
I don't know.
Could we maybe start the ball by asking a general question, maybe?
Well, I was going to say I have an email
Oh,
that I
okay.
can read. Bear with me. I'm trying to navigate the Zoom room while I. Oh, wrong phone.
You want me to tell you?
No, it's too long. This is from Scott and Lisa Rushworth. They said they would not be able to attend the meeting this evening. They want to ensure that a statistically significant number of residents' responses to any questionnaires are received to develop a picture of what residents want to see in the master plan. They were astonished to hear the low response rate on which the current plan was based, and would hope that the committee engages in some out-of-the-box thinking to solicit input if we find ourselves in the same position, instead of deeming input from a small percentage of residents as indicative of the general population. Before I continue on, maybe somebody was on that steering committee.
The most recent or way back? The first one I was on, we mailed to every home. And as I recall, Terry, you might remember, it was about less than 7% came back. They received a questionnaire with a postage paid envelope. And I think it was either 7 or close to 7% of the entire population responded. Out of, with that time, a couple thousand.
Okay. 2015.
No, I'm going back. I'm going back to 80s, 83 or 84. That was the only time we did it that way. Otherwise, it was open to the public to come to the meetings. You know, they have after all, at least it was done before, after all these sessions and all these pieces are put together, they had in public hearings, 2 or 3 public hearings where people could respond. And I don't think the turnout was 7%. I think it was something less than that.
Okay. Anyone else who
I
has?
look at the 15 information that was posted in there.
Yeah.
Less than, it was 1/2 of 1%. Is what showed up based upon the population and the questions that were answered.
Right.
So I agree with their opinion.
Yeah.
Find a way to engage more people.
Okay. And that's going to be your job. So think about it, how you want to interact with the public, because it's our job to collectively gather all of their opinions.
I can't believe for the amount of stuff that is said on Facebook and everything, and this is all that's here. I mean, it's unbelievable, unbelievable.
Well, just a reminder that the people on Zoom cannot interact. Does somebody else want to step up? You do. No, because I've got the proctor taking minutes for the meeting, which is the documented.
But she does.
You know what?
She does more.
Let me finish this email. No, bear with me. No, you don't just sit right there. Tuck yourself right there. So to finish the email, beyond that concern, we would like the following items to be addressed during the plan revision process. And it's extensive. I don't know that this is what our intent is. Conservation districts are configurations that would be more acceptable, increased setback for first residents, require developed areas to be centered within the overall area, increased screening, etc. Better transition between business and residential areas, possibly creating additional, more strictly defined business districts to provide a transition between residential areas and higher traffic businesses. Lot size, green space requirements. Some townships in Ohio have defined a minimum green space per lot. Without such a stipulation, a property owner could conceivably pave over the majority of their lot, which does not keep up with the rural aesthetic. Light pollution and limitation of light emanating from properties. Sound ordinance and restriction on outdoor audio. Special events, restrictions residents would like to see on special events like hours of operation. Time restriction on a recreational weapon discharge, i.e. not applicable for hunting, law enforcement, personal defense, or protecting livestock. Maximum number of permits issued per year. Hudson, while a city, so not an identical scenario, was able to successfully defend a limitation to the number of permits issued per year to control the rate of growth to ensure services such as police and fire were able to accommodate new growth. And I continue on to create a master plan that can be used as an architectural design requirements document by the zoning commission review the zoning regulations to ensure traceability between master plan design and requirements and the zoning regulations implementation. In product development, there are both requirements, what the customer needs the application to do, and design. Creating a product without requirements doesn't work. Hundreds of hours can be wasted creating something that isn't needed. The master plan and zoning regulations seem to have a similar relationship. If there is something in the zoning resolution, then there should be a corresponding item within the master plan. As an example, there's a section in the zoning resolution for alternative energy. The master plan then should include information on residents' views on encouraging or limiting alternate energy production. Last blurb. I know I'm over the 3-minute mark. Our township policies outside of zoning in scope of the master plan revision. We have heard both term limits and financial disclosures being discussed, and if this is a suitable forum to discuss resident views on such items, we would like to see those included as well. Thank you for your time. And that's from the Rushworths.
It's much better.
Well, I promised her that she would go next. This one is from Patricia Woodall. Good morning. Would like to address some concerns for the upcoming CP Steering Committee meeting. Would like to see the zoning for housing be changed to a 2-acre lot minimum with no collective green space. Adapt Granger's policy. Thank you for your time. Thank you. She thanks you for your time.
Okay, I'm not a public speaker, and do I have to say where I'm from? My name. Heidi Rouser Gutwein. I live on Mattingly Road. We moved here when our daughter was 8 months old, and she is now 24. We looked around for about 5 years to find the perfect place to live and raise our family, and we decided that Hinckley was that place because of the open spaces, like we all know, the rural charm. It's just a great place to live. I have been involved in many meetings here. I was here when David Terry tried to put into development and we shot it down. There were many people at those meetings. I was at the planning meetings in 2015, to the one at the church and over at Our Lady of Grace. And I'm just a concerned citizen because I see the place that we thought we would stay forever is changing in not a good way. Bringing water to the city is the beginning of the end if we choose to go that way. And what really why I got up here to speak is why we are trying so hard to seek out everybody's opinion. If the people really cared about their community, they would be sitting in these chairs here at this meeting. If they're not here, why are we going out there to beg them for their opinion? If they're too busy with their careers or whatever they're doing, then that's just too bad. They can email you, they can do whatever. But I just think this is ridiculous that we're spending so much time on seeking out everybody's opinion. Get your butt here, sit down in the chair, and voice your opinion. Thank you. Good job. Can I just ask a question? Is there a time limit for this steering committee?
Yeah.
And what is that?
I'm going to grab this just for the people at home. The question was, is there a time limit for this committee and this process? And there is. We signed a contract with OHM Planning to be done by the end of April. So this is our first meeting. It's
With the audit.
It's just an audit. It is not redoing the entire comprehensive plan.
Okay, explain that what you mean by just an audit. What is
So there are certain parts that we will go in and change. We feel that the plan as a whole was a good plan. Typically, this process is done every 10 to 15 years. We're doing it much earlier than expected, secondary to the fact that the township is changing. It's something that everybody is seeing and talking to the trustees about, and we wanted to get a feel for what the people of Hinckley would like to see for the future. So this is a plan that will support the zoning resolution and any changes we make to it so that we can move forward productively with what the people of Hinckley would like to see in our town. You're welcome.
The plan you're talking about is the one that was handed out to all of you?
Correct. Yes, sir. That is the 2015 plan. And I believe there's an extra copy if you want one. I can give it to you, or it is on the website.
Which website is that?
The Hinckley Township, hinkleytwp.org.
In the upper right-hand corner, to find it easy, there's a search box. Just type in comprehensive plan and it brings it up, as opposed to trying to find it on the website.
Okay. Could you tell us something about OHM planning and who they are and how you became involved with it?
OHM Planning they were the company that did the last comprehensive plan. And I think they may even have done the one before that.
So the concept of staying with a planner that knew our specific area was something that felt comfortable, and they are highly recommended in the planning industry. So we just stayed with them.
How long did it take to design this plan the last time?
I believe it took about a year.
Okay.
How do you decide what's going to be changed and what's going to stay?
We're trying to hear from you right now.
This is where this is.
Yeah, so if you have something to say, this committee would love to hear it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is John Kalis. I live at 1809 Ridge Road. The lady that came up and spoke a minute ago, I guess I say that, I guess first of all, I'm not a public speaker. So I'll say that. I guess I can echo her sentiment. We moved out here probably about 6 years ago. We have 2 small kids. We started our family here because we liked it so much. And we want to see them grow out here. I mean, I lived in Old Brooklyn, just like you, just up the street, right on Ira Avenue. Yeah. And so again, like I said, we came out here. We wanted to start a family. We got married. We had 2 kids. We want to see our children grow up outside, away from, you know, not inside on the tablets and all that garbage. We want to see them grow up and thrive. And I agree about the water. The water is a really bad idea, in my opinion. I really think that we're opening up the proverbial floodgates if we let them in. I don't think we need it. I think when the trustees were running, it was discussed that it would have to either come down Ridge or either from Mattingly or from Granger. And in order to make it profitable, they were going to have to pick up everybody down Ridge or you know, I don't know if they can force people to do it or ask people to do it, however it would go, but that's me. I'm on Ridge. I don't want city water. I left Cleveland, so I didn't have to deal with Cleveland's sewer. I didn't have to deal with Cleveland's water. And now, again, in these times right now, I think that we need to be as independent and community organized as possible. I think that we really, you know, everybody talks about the fact that there's not that many people here right now. I think there does need to be more people here now. I think the fact that we have agriculture here is really important to be able to support locally and to support them, and they can support us. It's going to become a problem in the future. There's no doubt about it. And again, I mean, this is just literally the perfect place for me to live, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want to live in the suburbs. Everybody's talked about it. Every one of these meetings about zoning, about Strongsville and Brunswick and all these other places that we're surrounded by. And everybody still comes here for a reason. We can go out and shop and gallivant and do whatever it is that we want to do in those areas. But this is one of a kind. And if we lose it, then it's gone. And everybody will just keep headed south or pick up and leave. So I'm done rambling. Yeah, that's it. If I have anything else, I'll speak again. Thank you. Thank you.
Come on up. My wife's waiting for you. It's hot over here.
Good evening. My name is Ron Cameron. I live on Nadine Circle, very northwest corner of Hinckley, and been here for 15 years. Absolutely love it. It's just been great. And I lived previously, I lived in Avon Lake. My family grew up there. I had a very nice house. I bought extra property because I like that idea. And, but I lived very close to the lake also. Had a very nice home, nice location. But then I lived on a dead end street. Well, that didn't last very long. Big development went in, and development after development. And it just, the traffic, everything. And I just said, you know, I don't want this. I want more of a rural area. And I found it. And basically I came here, I'm not going to ask any real questions because I have to study the situation. I have to start learning about it, which forgive me, I haven't really done. But certain things catch your attention, right? And when I start hearing about all the advances they want to make with the water, and they want to do building here and building there, it got my attention. Now I'm paying attention to what's going on. Basically, I came here to meet you people on the committee. I liked it. I liked every one of your responses, about dedication to the community and your love for Hinckley. I was impressed with that. I like that. I have the same feeling, but I'm not going to ask any questions at this time because I don't think they would be well-founded. Okay, I have to do my homework. I guess that's what I wanted to bring. Yes.
Ask you a question, and I should have asked it before. Define rural. I think it's a common theme, but what does it mean to everybody?
That's true. That's a very good question. What does it mean? Horses, farming, that type of environment that's still there. Okay, the people that still have farms, still have horses, still have 10, 15 acres or whatever, whip sledges, the parks. It's just fantastic to me. I really love it.
And if anybody else comes up, answer the same thing. I think that's something we're hearing, but let's make sure we're looking at rural as the same thing.
Well, and I will say, I had a job, the position that I had. I traveled the world for 30 years. I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but I've been all over. Rural areas in China, rural areas in Australia, rural areas in South Africa. So I know the term rural, okay? And, but this is the place I chose. Out of all that, I chose Hinckley, and never regretted it. So my concern is I want to meet you, and I wanted to see the direction this is going. But I need to do my homework. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, you guys control the direction of where this goes. So we have to hear from you.
I didn't use my whole 3 minutes. I'm going to answer Mr. Bielowski's question. To my thinking, Hinckley is not a rural community. Okay? Right. You want to see rural? Drive to southwestern Ohio. Drive between Columbus and Cincinnati. That's rural. Hinckley is not rural. Hinckley is not a suburb. Hinckley is somewhere in between. Hinckley is essentially, at this point, it's a bedroom community for Cleveland and Akron. That's what Hinckley is now. It has some rural aspects to it, but it's not a rural community. And I agree that we should attempt to preserve whatever remains of its rural aspects. But at the same time, you're not going to preserve all of them. And people who own property do have a right to sell it. And at this point, they have a right to sell it to whoever wants to buy it. And that is another fact that you and the community are going to have to live with.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I make a suggestion? Sometime look up the word rural in your dictionary or on Amazon, because the definition, I don't think, is the definition that many of you think it is. Terry is right on the button. Rural is distant from certain things, means certain things, but not what I think we really want. I think we want to preserve what we tend to preserve what we have without infringing upon the rights of those people who wish to sell their property, which might be their 401k and whatever. But just look up the definition.
It's Terry, correct?
Right.
Okay. I agree with you 100% that we are a bedroom community. We're not a suburb of Brunswick. We're not a suburb of North Royalton. We're a bedroom community with rural characteristics. The reason I agree with you that we're a rural that we're a bedroom community is there's so many citizens, we have so many lots here and so many citizens. We're not just barns and goats and cows and farms and hayfields. But I agree with you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody at this table that you are here. Yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for you taking your time and your energy to put this whole program together. My name is Marcia Powers Cameron, and I'm married to the wonderful gentleman that just spoke a minute ago. I've been in Hinckley, I think, for about 3.5 or 4 years. I absolutely love it. I came from the Cleveland area, from Pepper Pike and Bratnall, and I said, I want to get out and I want to come here. So we really had not gotten that engaged in the politics and in the running of this community until recently. And the reason I'm standing here tonight is I want to ask you all a request. And that is, when you put this plan together, please make sure to look at it from a financial point of view. In other words, make sure that the financial statements are available to the citizens so we can see how the money is being spent. We want to see the sources and the uses of the income that's coming in, break out the income so we can have a better understanding as to what's going on. What's happening right now, from my understanding, is that we get a readout every month of where the money, it's like a checking account. We're going to get this, we're going to get that. But like in any good business or any good household, you have to know, do you have the money coming in to pay for those? And by the way, where is the money coming from? The sources and the uses. So I do ask everybody to please make that a number one priority so that we consumers can make better decisions insofar as your recommendations. Okay? Thank you very much.
I had to do that.
Or you're walking home.
There is a
Hello. My name's Sean Pepper. I live on Westwind Trace. This is what I would say to all of you is to really sit down and think about what you want the place to look like in 10 years. Because that's what you're we might not be getting back together for another 10 years potentially. So looking far enough into the future that whatever we put down on paper is relevant in 10 years. I would urge you not to be afraid of limits, just like they did back in wherever where, acreage was smaller. Those people got grandfathered, but then we made this 2-acre minimum. I urge you to make that non-negotiable, 2-acre minimum. I think we need to think about for the people versus for the developers. What is better for the people, both the landowners and residents versus developers. I urge you to close any loopholes that you should see, such as living in a business district. I do understand landowners have the right to sell. They have a 401k, but I would obviously throw out there that I do too. I bought my 8 acres knowing that I was leaving feet first. And just because they have 401k doesn't mean that I don't either. And I worry about my 8 acres. And I would ask all of you to define the rural. What does rural mean to all of you? Thank you.
Anyone want to talk about what rural means to them?
I would vote for Terry. He said exactly what I would say. We're not a bedroom community, nor are we a suburb. We're somewhere in between. Rural, by definition, is detached. It means a whole bunch of different things that rural areas are. And I think the key is to preserve what we can and still end up with what we have.
Anyone else?
Well, someone who lives in one of the new developments and on 1 acre of land, Rural wasn't something I thought of when I was buying a home here. While I knew Hinckley still had farms, one of the things my wife does is work with large farms throughout the country. And by large, talking about 100,000 acre farms. And so that's not what Hinckley is. It is in the middle of the Cleveland-Akron Metropolitan District. I think you're right. I think it is a bedroom community. It's small. It is a township as opposed to a city, which does have advantages for living here. And so I would like to see that preserved. But I think the definition of rural really needs to be redeveloped for all of us because again, it's not a farming community anymore. Most of the people that live here aren't farmers. As you said, there's 2 active farmers on the committee, and the rest of us probably have jobs in other fields. And so I'd like to see those people that aren't in possibly a rural type employment be represented as well. So I think changing how we think of rural is, and how we think of Hinckley, not calling it a rural community anymore and calling it a bedroom community or just a township is fine.
Yeah, the farmer's point of view, I think that rural includes the concept of freedom to farm. I know that my friend Dave here is running into trouble over in Brunswick because he can't run his tractor after a certain time. I don't have the ambition to farm all night anymore, but I'm not going to like it if somebody tells me I have to shut it down at a certain time. Just an example. Another part of rural is getting stuck behind a John Deere tractor, pulling a disc or something and having the patients figure he's not going to be on the road for very long. There's a lot of people don't have that patience in Hinckley anymore. I see people pass me right at the crest of hills for absolutely no reason. Anything you want to add?
Speaking with that, we're actually going to put cameras in our tractors because there's so many times that these people no respect for the size of the equipment. Our turns will have on our turn signals and they'll still, and it's so close so many times. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
And occasionally that driver might be on the phone.
Taking pictures of you saying, check this out.
I do want to add that as a farmer in Hinckley, I'm very careful to be as considerate as I can of our fellow citizens. And numerous times I have people come out to the field, especially when I'm combining, and that's a big green machine and it's pretty neat looking. Mm-hmm. And I've had people bring their children out. Sometimes they're only 3 or 4 years old and sometimes the dad will ride and sometimes the child will say, I don't need you here. I just want to ride. I mean, that's the kind of thing that ties a community together between the farmers and the other residents. And that's the type of thing I'd like to keep. Thank you.
I did look up the definition, several definitions of rural while we've been going, and a lot of them are those negative definitions. Rural is not urban or has characteristics that are not urban. Well, that's not really a definition, but one of the big things 4 or 5 definitions all have is density and space. And it may not be specific to a certain thing, but it is the amount of space you have and that you don't have high density areas of population to it. And I think, like I said, I like my 5+ acres. That's a lot of what attracted us out here. I love the fact that we've got a couple still working farms down the street on, Mattingly around the corner on State. And my kids were the ones watching the big machines, go by. Absolutely. And having that, I like my septic. I like my, cistern, those who have wells. Once you start all that other stuff, I think you lose that. I do agree. We are not a true rural, southwestern Ohio, even go down more by, edges of Lodi and Homerville. You'll see a lot more rural. You really want to go rural, go out to Middlefield or, out in the Amish, and you'll really find, rural. But we do have a lot of characteristics that I think if we lost, we'd really be losing a lot of Hinckley. And I think farming is one of them, that it would make us a much lesser place to lose these unique characteristics that you see lost in around a lot of our surrounding communities. When I think bedroom community, I tend to think more of a Strongsville or Brunswick. And I realize we're closer to that than we were 50 years ago. But that doesn't mean we have to keep going that way.
Just so you know, I'm not going to start farming with horses.
I guess since I brought it up, I'm going to throw out what I think we are. And I think we're a combination. When I define Hinckley, I look at it as rural yet accessible. What I could afford when we moved out here was a 2-acre lot, and we're in development with 2-acre lots. What I like is you can get up and walk in the evenings. What you hear is crickets. You don't hear anything else. You can do that. But if I have to get somewhere, it's very easy here to get everywhere you need to get to. I think it's good with the blend of the farming and homes. To have the nature parks, to be able to go out to the park, to be able to drive out and see some of the farms. When I grew up, I was community to community to community. My parents moved, and it wasn't anything like that until I got to high school. And now I look where we were, and that's nowhere near as nice as where we are now. I like where we are. I think it's a good blend. Someone says, what do you want to avoid? Oversaturation. Where's that balance? I think this is where we need to understand where the balance is. What's important to everybody? When I first heard about the potential, you talked about water. I had a different opinion. Now listening to people, it's like, there's a balance there. But rural in the true sense, we're not. But I like what everybody has said so far on where we are, and it's a blend of the two. And I think part of the goal of everything is, where do we want to be? The 10-year plan somebody brought up. Where do we want to be 10 years? Do you want to maintain the same type of thing? Where do you see, what do the residents want? Where is everybody's viewpoint? I cannot encourage enough. Make your viewpoints heard through whatever format. If you didn't make it tonight, email questions in. We're going to figure out how to gather additional input. Input going forward. So please let people know, pass that information on. Excuse me.
He's the club.
And it's empty. But I encourage, let your voices heard. There's some great people here who've said stuff. I've learned a lot, and we will continue to learn.
Yes, sir. You'll have to come back up when he's done. Deal? Okay. Sir,
I'm not really good at this at all.
please state your name for the record.
My name is Dean Bernhofer. I live on Ledge Road. I know Dave. I've got Hay from Brian Cadnam. Our sons played baseball together. This is a great community. I've been here since 1989. I built my house. My wife didn't like being here at first. Now I couldn't drag her out of here. She was involved with Market Day at Hinckley Elementary and all that. What I think a rule is you have some space between your neighbors. Okay. You go up on Boston Road by the end of that, the people live, I walk around my buddy's garage and you watch the people eating dinner in their house. He lives where he's got some room. You got a little privacy between your neighbors. Brian's been farming here forever. Dave, I know Gary's family. My boys all grew up together with yours. My son played ball with you, like I said. This is a great town, a great township. But rural is where, to me, you have a little bit of space. I own firearms. I like to target shoot in my yard. I live in the park. I have a safe setup. Dave hunts. You people might not like that, but it's something we do. I came out here because I love the Highland School District. My 2 boys got a great education. And you're going to see me at more of these things, I'll tell you that, because I think we got to get more involved. And to you, sir, you did the first comprehensive plan.
I was there, yes.
You were there. How do you see things progressing?
You mean to the future?
From whatever plan you talked about, compared to what you
Well, one thing, I went through all the plans without dragging this out real long. The other night, I kind of thumbed through them, and there was a common denominator in every one of those plans that we should be having senior housing. That was the most thing, which I think is something
I didn't
resolved.
mean to put you on the spot.
No, you don't, that's fine. We talked 2 plans ago where we got into we got into planned unit developments, which was what people are complaining about, where there would be at least the equivalent of 2 acres for every house, even though the house would be on a 1 acre part, which I kind of support. Instead of every house being set on 2 acres, looks like the city, only on bigger lots. I think we made major changes in that by moving the developments back off the road. So a lot of changes have been made that I think are very positive. The other thing is, I look around at the thing, we really don't have that much more development plan or area to develop. And how much time do we want to spend on all this for 3 or 4 more big developments? And I think we made progress, to answer your question in a short period of time. As far as water, on the street I live, we happen to have water, but that was originally negotiated with, you didn't have to tie in, which I didn't, because we do like the well water. I don't know that if they had water in the future. My big concern looking at the long run is the day will come where the EPA is going to show up outside and say you will have sewage treatment plants or some kind of thing. It's not going to be tomorrow, but you're going to see it someday. And that will bring water. And I'm off my box. So
I think I see a lot of definition of rural. A lot of it has to do with population, the amount of people. And I don't know, since 2015 to now, I see a huge change of traffic on 303. I mean, the time it takes me to get from Giant Eagle to my house off of River Road, used to be able to stay in that right lane, get in the left lane, and get back to the right line by Sheets. Now you got to stay in that right lane because, you can't go back and forth anymore. There's too many cars. There's lights. We're adding traffic lights now. We're having, I just see a big change since 2015 with the amount of cars and I don't know, the census and how many people we have defines rural versus urban. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. I don't know. I think it's an issue that needs to be discussed because, our roads can only take so much. We have a nice part about where we're at is location with the highways 71, 77, 271. That's all great, but it's like just to go to Brunswick now from my house is such a pain in the butt. I dread going down 303. I didn't used to be like that, but it's bad. I guess it's not bad, but to me, it's annoying. I liked it when I could get down in 5 minutes and back, but now it's like.
Don't move to LA.
I won't, don't worry.
Come on up. Mr. Pearl, did you have something to say?
I'll do it after this. Thank you.
You want to do it now?
No, it's okay. You're up.
Okay, thank you again for
You're ready.
listening to my comments. I'm originally from the Southwest, from Texas and Oklahoma, and New Mexico, and I understand rural. Real good. And I think that if you lived in Texas, you would definitely say that this is a rural community. And no doubt about it. And yes, are we neighboring to the suburbs? Yeah. But we're not a bedroom community. Not at all. When I decided to move here, I said to Ron, honey, this is what the people on the outside look at. And they say, Hinckley, isn't that just buzzards and people with, with saddlebags on or something?
Ask me how many chickens I had.
Yeah. Honest to God, that's the impression, the rest of the community. They say, Hinckley, where's Hinckley? I don't know where Hinckley is. They really do look at Hinckley as I think we should, which is it really is a rural community. And equally important, what I have found is that in Hinckley, you really do still have neighbors that care for each other. No matter, whether you're 2 miles apart, or 5 miles apart, you have a beautiful community here. And I think that is kept because of the fact it's a rural community. And if you want to make it even more rural, why don't we start bringing some people in that can raise horses and cattle and sheep and so forth? I mean, why not? I mean, we've got the land. And if you want to keep it rural and rustic, let's just not do kitty cats and wine. By the way, did you find your cat?
No, not yet.
Oh,
Thank you for asking.
but anyway, clearly, Hinckley is a rural. The rest of the world looks at Hinckley as the rest of the community. So, and this is from a newcomer. So, and you have beautiful people here, a beautiful community, deeply concerned about your history. That's one thing I really like about this place. You're deeply concerned about your history and you're deeply concerned about preserving it. So, don't feel bad.
Could I ask her a question?
Yes, sir.
Would you be interested in volunteering with the Historical Society? I'm the president of the Historical Society. With that talk that I listened to.
I said, honey, I want to start getting a little bit more engaged. And I
you want to get the history and that? It's
yeah, the lady that you work with,
Which
I did mention to her that I was interested in knowing more about
Heather?
it. Yeah, because I love history.
Well, Heather's not even, she brought some information to the Women's Club.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I helped her
I
put
would
all
love
that
to be
together.
involved.
Please
I think
do.
history is so important.
Okay,
You know-
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got a chance to get a volunteer. I got a chance to get a volunteer, which was just.
We also need it for our children and our grandchildren because our kids get sucked into these suburbs and they just, they get sucked into Cleveland and Cuyahoga County and all that garbage that's going on down there. We need to make sure that they understand, appreciate, and truly respect and value the values that this community has. So I'd love to be part of it. I'll give you a call.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to Mr. Pearl.
You
wanna wait? Sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Mine's very short.
Go ahead, please, stand up. I've got a hot mic.
My name's Michelle Crew. I've lived in Hinckley since 2005. And when I moved into Hinckley, I moved into a development. I had about 4.5 acres. I had lots of space. I did not like the homeowners association. I don't like a homeowners association to tell me what I can do and what I cannot do. Even though I had 4.5 acres, no one can see me. I still had these people telling me, oh, you can't have this at the end of your driveway, or you have to do this. So I moved. I have my own little mini property on a crest of a hill on State Road where if I try to back in my horse trailer, I have people going around me as well. So I know that. Rural is really big to me, and I'm on the zoning board, but I do want to hear everyone. That's why I'm here. I wanted to meet you all. I wanted to hear what your thoughts are. Because for me, I think Hinckley's, one of its greatest assets is space. And I would like to keep that. The 2-acre minimum that we have, 2 acres for these 5,000 square feet homes, that might be an exaggeration. They're probably 3,500 right now, average. 2 acres is nothing. You are right on top of each other, if that's what you want. Am I for the 5-acre minimum? No. But I think we do have to look at space. Do we increase our frontage so that we have a wider space? But I really do, we talk about neighbors and not seeing, someone eating next door. That's I think that's important. But I really, for me, rural is space. Space to have your own privacy, space to be in your own home, property. And I just want you to think about that. I'm not saying anything negative about a development. I lived in a development. Some of the people who are commenting on Facebook with those negative comments don't even live in Hinckley, and that's sad because a lot of people don't know that they don't live in Hinckley. Those of us who know them want to say, shut your mouth, go back to where you are. So really just, keep those thoughts in your mind. We're not negative to those developments. We're not. Sure, and Dave mentioned our zoning. We pushed back, on the entrances to some of these developments so that they're not so noticeable from the street. And I think that's a good thing. And I think that's a good thing for everybody, not just, part of Hinckley. But that's all. Sorry.
Thank you, Michelle. Conservation developments. Excuse me for pointing, but I think everybody all around this room up to this point thoroughly understands what a conservation development is. And we've probably all read in this plan once or twice or three times in the last month what it is. I'd like to poll the audience out here. If you've ever driven through one of these conservation developments, put your arm up, put your hand up. Okay, put your hands down. How many people out here know how many total conservation developments we have in Hinckley? A few, okay. There's 3. The most recent one is the Skyland Golf Course that is now Legacy? Redwood. Is it possible to have Jen show us how many people are
On?
21.
There's 21.
Oh, it's in the corner.
There's not a full 21 because Jen and myself in the conference room. So
Okay,
probably
so it's about the same number. I guess I would just encourage everyone and in the video audience to drive through some conservation developments and tell us what you like about them. Tell us what you don't like about them. Tell us what you think about the setback from the road. Go ahead.
I was here when they, my name's Angela Chesney.
Angela, can you step up just so people virtually can hear? Thank you.
My name's Angela Chesnick. I live on Country Brook Drive. We moved here about 25 years ago. I was at those meetings when they talked about conservation developments. And what we were sold back then was that those were going to be, maybe 1 acre lots. Everything would equal 2 acres for the properties that they were on. They would be set back. They would be behind trees. No one would know that they weren't 2 acre lots. So that's what Martha brought forth to the group. So many of us thought, well, that's going to look really nice. You're not going to use all that property. You're going to spread it out. People won't really see it from the main road. It'll still look like Hinckley. That was what they sold us. And that's not really what we've gotten.
Go a little further to just a plain subdivision. A plain subdivision, let's say 100, you have to have 100 acres to have a conservation district. And what it does is it conserves certain areas, keeps the trees up, keeps the wetlands, keeps the riparian way.
Right.
And there's a setback from the street, so there's a buffer. And then what the land is left, if you could have 50 lots, 52 acre lots, you're allowed to have up to 50, maybe even a few less. But if they didn't do a conservation district, they could cut all the trees down in that 100 acres.
It doesn't really happen. I mean, I live in a development. People left the trees up where we live.
You're on 2 acre lots also.
Yes, we are.
Right.
We are. But as many people that everybody kept as many trees as they could.
Okay.
That was the whole goal. When we moved, we kept as many trees as we could. We kept it as trees. We actually added trees because we wanted it to be as treed as possible. And we set our house back behind all those trees. So when we were first presented with the conservation development, it was supposed to be that those were going to be set back. The green space would be around the areas that everyone could actually be involved with. A lot of the developments just leave the green space in the back. So, they have this buffer area. And then in the development that's off of State Road, he actually had his concentration
Walden.
there. Right.
Walden, okay.
Right. So his concentration there, he gave the township some piece of property off on
Riparian way.
303 in like, a bribe to get more houses in there.
Right.
And that's what everybody saw it as. It was a bribe so that he could get more houses in that particular area.
So you're against conservation developments?
Not necessarily.
Then what would you like to change? Help us. What would you like to change?
There was a discussion about having like a buffer in the front. They have to have a setback.
We do have a buffer now. It's been adjusted to 300 feet.
Okay, but there has to be, you have to have the 2-acre min per the amount of density that you would have in a normal development.
Walden is.
Huh?
Walden is.
Yeah, but all that green space is way in the back.
No, it's not true. I live there. It's not true.
Okay.
It's not true.
Well, I'm talking Redwood.
Oh, Redwood, I'm sorry. Okay. I don't live there.
So we do have someone who does.
It's in the way back.
No, right up front. Yeah. It's just behind our
Like
house.
when you go down 303, you see
Right.
the houses are all like
Right
right on
there.
top of each other, right on 303.
They are very close to each other, the 1 acre. So the 1 acre parcels have the conservation lands behind each of the houses, so directly behind my house. I'm the 8th house in on the right. And when you go behind the end of my property line, there's another 150 feet of conserved land before you hit the next set of property that's the legacy or the legends development that's on the other side. And so they put in water
But in the
retention.
front part, like when you drive by.
I agree. I think the front
you see right from
is,
303.
I think it's, I don't know what the frontage is on that and what the requirement was when it was built. I agree. It's a little too close. I think they could have done a better job. Putting up landscaping and more trees.
Right.
Trees will grow. I mean, it is brand new. It's not even finished yet. But as far as the conserved land with each of our parcels for the Skyland Falls Boulevard, all of it is behind our house. So just, they do have the
There's a big
conserved
buffer in
land.
the back, though, a lot of it.
There is, and I don't know where that land is.
Well, and
because
then there's
it
people
comes
that are
back and
affected
goes-
off of Stony Hill that, their property abuts right up to that.
Right.
Aren't we supposed to have access to that? Technically, wasn't that how it was kind of sold too, that would be like a park?
No.
It was not sold as that? It was just for them.
That and the animals.
By definition, even as a resident, so I live in Walden, and we're not allowed to access the conservation land.
Just gotta sit there.
We can do nothing with it, right? We
You
can't.
can't even walk it.
Technically, you can have no motorized vehicles on it. So around the pond area, we have a walking path, but it's just grass that we mow. The community mows. But all the property in the front at State Road, that was farmed. I think you had farmed it at one time, right?
I did. So they threw me off. That's a fact.
We can have that conversation.
He was farming at midnight.
No, he wasn't. I can vouch for that. He was not. But that property, there's more property at the front of the development than there is at the rear. So behind the houses that are as far east as you can go, the land only goes, I think, like 55 feet from the rear of their property line to where the next property owner starts. So that's why I said, no, that wasn't true, because in Walden, it is at the front. Now, unfortunately, it's not. It's, two big open fields that were previously farmed. And now as a community, we're talking about doing a reforestation project there. So, yeah.
What do you guys call that community at the end of Boston Road that I was talking about, where all the houses are like right next to each other?
Brookside, the subdivision.
That's done, yeah.
Wakefield something? Yeah.
Oh, Wakefield.
That's over in there.
That was a court settlement. That was the jump for, so that really doesn't fit the situation.
Take it up to law.
Oh, it sure does. It doesn't fit any kind of characteristic.
The court made certain decisions and the township agreed with them at the time. I was on the BZA at the time when we turned down certain things and went to court. And there was a lengthy court battle. The records are somewhere, I'm sure.
See,
A lot of decisions were made that were taken out of the hands of the trustees at that time of the township. The court took them. They decided that it should be certain things
I think that's
because they felt the comprehensive plan at that time did not need to give enough general information. And if real quick, years ago, we were led to believe you needed a comprehensive plan to support your zoning, because this is, so you could, the courts have since, in the Granger situation, decided you don't need a comprehensive plan. Zoning stands on its own. But But basically, Wayfield Run was out of it.
Could you repeat what you just said?
Which one?
Well, what you just said.
Well, I'm actually,
Ranger something?
I'm going to actually.
Oh, there was a lawsuit in Granger, and the court decided, the Ohio Supreme Court decided that you did not need a comprehensive plan in order to support your zoning.
Very good, thank you.
That's not what our prosecutor's office has told us, just so the
Yeah.
public knows.
Melissa, can I ask you?
Yes.
This is more for the trustees. This development up here, Redwood Falls, was that under the new conservative or development, conservation development? Was that under the new plan? Or is that the old one with the setbacks and everything?
That's the old one.
Okay.
And so what we did, and actually it wasn't me, but the zoning commission at the time put in a yield plan. And so what every developer has to do now when they come in with a conservation development plan is they have to also provide us a plan with a house on every 2 acres. And we haven't had a conservation development since.
Right.
So that yield plan went into place, I think, in 2019 or 2018. That's just off the top of my head. I don't have the exact year. And then last year, the Board of Trustees increased the setbacks to 300 feet so that it was pushed back away from the road even further. That's just the trustee version.
Right.
I'm trying to stay out of the conversation
Right.
so that
Well,
you guys are.
and then my other thing is with these developments like that up there on State Road, when that property was developed and everything, Brian was up there farming.
Mhm.
Why can't he still farm that property? Because it was there when the development in it went in. I mean, it's still adding to the rural effect of the community and.
I don't know which property you're speaking of on State by
Walden.
Walden.
Yeah, there's a field up front and then there's a field down the side that he was kicked out of because it's.
Is it part of their land?
Green
Or their-
space, yes.
Okay, so if it's part of their green space, it's now in the hands of their HOA.
Right. So those people are the ones telling us that we don't want rural community pretty much,
Well, I think, you
kicking
know,
Brian out of there.
They just don't want it there.
Well, I'm just bringing more stuff up to
I think
everybody
that
so everybody
when the
hears it.
developer came in, they probably bought that property and that's why.
Well, for a while, Brian was up there farming when that HOA and everything was in effect. And then they kicked
I
him
don't
out
have any
after.
knowledge of that, so I can't really speak to it. I could do some
bring up a
research.
good point. I've lived in towns where they're on the edge of the city, past agricultural use. What they've done is they've set up conservation commissions, and when the developer comes in, does a conservation plan to conserve the land instead of being part of the homeowners association, is controlled by the town. Then the town can employ it.
That's what I think it should be
as
also.
agricultural land or conservation land or bird watching.
Forestry or, yes.
In other words, it relieves the burden of the homeowner association of what do they do with this? But it puts a burden on the town too.
Liability and everything.
Oh, you have to have a group of people that meet once a month, a whole other commission, a whole other layer of government, okay? But it gives the town more control. Something to think about. There's towns that are doing that now. You can take a look at them.
How big are your farms? Because if I understand correctly, conservation zoning can correct me. You need 100 acres in order to do a conservation. Besides the 2 golf courses and your farms, I don't think there's 100 contiguous acres available. But how big are your farms?
It's very possible.
25 acres.
My farm, between what I own myself and what my family owns, is about 80 acres. And up on Hinckley Ridge, where we're located, there's never going to be sewers. So that's a non-factor for our property.
We're over 100 acres.
So how many other 100-acre contiguous properties are there in the township?
There are not that many that I know of.
Dr. Sher's down here where if they tore the houses down. 'Cause
Yeah.
He goes all the way around to Boston
At
Road.
this point contiguous,
Yeah.
there are not that many.
I figured there was 3, probably 4 at the most.
Earlier in the year, you said.
I did, but then I didn't consider golf courses. Just really quick, interruption from Chris Kalina, who is on virtually. He was talking, sent me a text about Granger, Mr. Manley. He said the Granger plan was found to be incorporated into their zoning plan and that it does not stand alone.
Okay.
So that's clarification on that.
Well,
I have a question regarding actually that. So this Granger, what year was Wakefield run?
that goes way back. That's
So I guess my,
the work that,
Oh, before that.
so were things that were learned through that process put into the comprehensive plan moving forward? Into that next comprehensive plan?
changes were made in
Year 2000.
Yeah,
Pretty much built all up by 2006.
there were some done in here. Some had.
Just because I feel like, what I was saying earlier about planning ahead, I just feel like sometimes we're on the defense, not on the offense, right? We're reacting to what has already happened and now we have to fix it and kind of get back on the back end. I feel like, going forward. And then as far as contiguous properties, again, it just because they're not contiguous now, doesn't mean people can't pass away, people can't annex on, buy the property next door. So I would also just say, don't maybe look at how many 100-acre properties there are now. Look at, okay, there's a 60-acre property here and a 40-acre property here. If that guy buys this one, you got to think about, moving forward, who can buy their next door neighbor and end up with 100 acres. And then we're going to be having to look at more comprehensive.
Remember water and sewer as well.
I understand. Yeah. But if we're talking about bringing water into the city, into the
I
town.
don't know where that came from. The trustees never talked about bringing water into town.
Just throwing it out there, looking at, possible annexes between properties as well.
Outstanding now.
Yes.
To quickly answer your question, Martha texted me that the HOA let you take care of those fields until they said that they were going to try the reforestation. So there was probably a crossover at some point by the HOA that had you not working those fields anymore at Walden.
Yeah, come on up.
No, this gentleman has been waiting patiently for half an hour to get up and, now it's his turn.
He gets his turn.
See?
No, it's not. He always gets his turn.
Martin, 20 Car Road, Hinckley. And I want to read just one thing I'd like.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you at all, sir. I need you to speak more into the microphone, please.
Oh, it doesn't bend. Okay. I'd like to incorporate something into the structure of the plan that I probably read that plan 5 or 6 times, and it'd be faster if I just read what I wrote. So, all comprehensive plan recommendations that authorize, recommend, or in any way suggest zoning changes ought to be broken out and included in a prominent position in the new comprehensive plan in a separate section. Any recommendations that would likely require zoning changes to implement them must be subject to an appropriate level of due diligence that can anticipate some of the consequences of these recommendations, particularly the impact they might have on the desire to keep the township as rural as possible. And my vision of rural is kind of open space. Coming from where I came from, this is pretty rural. I would also like to address a couple of other things. Mr. Manley or somebody spoke about the idea or the notion that if someone should happen to own significant acreage, it's considered part of their 401k or it's part of their financial backing. Well, if that property isn't necessarily zoned to be marketable as part of there's no obligation on the township's part to rezone anything for the benefit of an individual unless you're going to be able to rezone it for everybody else that's in the same circumstance. I mean, that's only fair. And the reason I talked about this change in the structure was it is really not a simple thing to read through the whole comprehensive plan and find out what words or phrases evolve into senior housing, evolve into redwood. Yeah. And there's little or no due diligence done to consider what the consequences of these recommendations really are. No one, I can't imagine anybody being in favor of a senior housing project if they were told up front in this comprehensive plan that it's going to be 120 units or whatever it is on a busy street beside two bars next to an industrial park with neighbors who really don't want them there. When I read through that comprehensive plan, the implication was it was going to be in some bucolic area. The words apartments were never mentioned, and it evolved into something completely different than the implications that were existing in that comprehensive plan. Read it yourself. You all will read it or have already read it. It just evolved in a way that I don't know anybody ever anticipated it. And just for the record, I have been one of the biggest critics of the Redwood development, not on an individual basis, but the way it's laid out. The density over there reminds me of the San Fernando Valley in LA. You drive by there, you've got houses literally almost maybe 75 feet from the road. You created density such that it impacted long-term neighbors by putting numerous houses literally on their property line. How did that come to be? Well, you can get back to the yield plan, you can get back to any number of things, but one of the reasons it's so dense over there is that the developer of that property happened to have a piece of land adjacent to it, which is 20 acres. And for some unknown reason, he was allowed to consider that 20 acres as being able to be computed into the yield for that property. He didn't have any houses put on his property. They're all stuffed into Skyland. Now, that was wrong in every respect. There's also no road access from the development into that property, which is also wrong. So there's any number of reasons I don't like the way Redwood has evolved. There's no one can argue that Redwood isn't a gigantic financial success. It's going to be the new standard for anybody who wants to develop a conservation district. Simply, they're going to go out and buy their 80 acres, and they're going to wave boatloads of money next to the neighbors to get to that 100, to be able to get and make a conservation district the way they want. And they're going to look at places like Redwood, which are huge financial success. I've driven that place probably 5 or 10 times, and most all of the conserved land is in the ass end of it. Well, guess where the most expensive lots are and the most expensive homes going to be built? Right back on that T intersection, where all the foliage is, where all the great vistas are, and so forth. And what do I like about conservation districts? Not one goddamn thing. You could do away with them tomorrow, and I would be overjoyed, because I think that they've been, as they've evolved, they've moved into something that was unintended. And Redwood was really the impetus for a lot of text changes that they built into recently in the last year or so. But it was 3 years after the fact, after all these problems were known, the text changes finally got implemented in the zoning code about the setbacks, about limiting. You're never going to see a 20-acre lot when everybody else is over there, maybe a half acre or whatever they are. You're not going to see any more houses that are built on a conservation development that you can't access from the HOA. Now, how this could happen and why it happened, I have no idea. But however it happened, it was wrong. And what you've got is a high density development over there that is as un-Hinckley-like as anything in the township. So, Well, thank you, Mr. Larson. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah, something on Facebook.
Hi, Nikki Long. I live at 1941 Parker.
Louder, please.
Sure. Can you hear me now? Test. Test. Oh, okay.
You just got to speak up.
Okay. 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 A couple questions. Are there going to be any more public hearings like the one tonight?
This really is not a hearing. It was not advertised.
Okay, a public meeting.
A hearing is a completely separate legal process.
Okay.
There
Are
will
there,
be other public meetings. Yeah.
Okay,
All of the
okay.
meetings will be public.
will there'll be a chance for the public to interact with the committee, or is this the only night? There will be.
Yeah.
Okay. Will, I know that the notes are part of the public record. Is it possible that if I send an email, like each of the members could get the email instead of having to write down everything that I say now, if they choose to? I mean, I just have a lot to say. And
Got 3 minutes.
Got 2.5.
So if you have a lot to say, they can jot down what they feel comfortable jotting down. We do have Jen taking minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I've thought a lot about what rural means to me. And, I think there are a lot of geographic parts to what rural is, but I think density is a big part of what rural is, and openness and having a lot of space. That's what I hear from the audience. I think I hear it from some of you guys too. And so, I think that the focus should be on keeping the density at what it is now, which is at least 2 acres. We have the 2 acre minimum. That's the residential minimum for an R1. R1 parcels make up, I think, the majority of Hinckley. So the majority of Hinckley are 2 acre parcels. I think we should keep that. I think that, the traffic that was mentioned, when you increase the density in a community, you increase traffic, you increase the need for services, fire, EMS, you increase the traffic on the roads. And all of those costs to maintain the roads, cost for fire and EMS and police, those all, make our taxes go up. I know Medina County has one of the lowest tax rates of all the surrounding counties, the counties surrounding Cuyahoga County. And so the more people that you bring into a community, the strain on services, and then eventually your taxes go up. So I think that keeping density at what it is now is, I think, a good way to keep everyone happy. There's been a comment about, we don't want, so someone doesn't want someone to be able to sell their property. I don't know where that came from. Cause I certainly have never, I don't believe that anyone should be told, what they can and can't do with their property in terms of selling it. So I don't know where that came from, but I do think that density is important to keep in mind. And I think we have a good place right now at having a 2 acre minimum. With that, there's some other things that I wanted to say. I think that, again, with density, there should be something put into the comprehensive plan to limit apartments, or to just sort of flat out say, we're not going to have apartments in Hinckley. And I don't know how you say that, but I think that's something that a lot of people don't like. And I think that sort of stirred the pot a little bit and caused a lot of ill feelings. And so I think if we just, if you guys would consider that, I think it would be good for the community not to have any apartments. Keeping the 2 acre minimum. I also am an advocate for not having any more water and sewer brought in any further than than it already is. Because, like you guys have talked about, conservation developments, they require three things, as far as I know: 100 acres and water and sewer. And so if we limit the introduction of new water and sewer, we can, limit where the conservation developments can go. I myself am not a fan of the conservation developments. I would like to see them go away or not exist, not be able to exist in Hinckley. But I also have gone back and forth with myself. I understand the intent, and I really like the spirit of the intent behind the conservation districts, or excuse me, the developments. I'd like to see the township, or you guys maybe, come up with a way to build in what we would lose if we took away conservation developments. So if we did say, hey, you got 80 acres, you can put 40 2-acre lots in that 80 acres. I'd like to see the township come up with a way to incentivize conservation for the developer. So incentivize a way to, make it so that the developer wants to build homes on more than 2 acres, 3, 4, 5-acre lots. I don't know how you would do that, but you guys probably are a lot smarter than me. Also, I think that it would be great. What I'd love to see is, you do lose trees when you have the 80 acres, split into 40 parcels, you lose trees. I hate to see that. And I know we don't have a lot of control with the developer, right? We do what we can in terms of the zoning code, but I would like to see written into the zoning code where we, tell a developer, look, if you're going to buy 80 acres and you want to put 40 houses on 80 acres, fine, but you have to plant X amount of saplings on those parcels, and they have to be saplings, and they have to survive after 2 years. And 15, 20 trees per parcel, and that way, we're limiting the amount of, we don't have then 40 acres of just grass, we don't have 80 acres of grass, split on 40 parcels. We have 40 homes that have a lot of trees. Okay.
Let her keep going. I'd rather hear it.
She's fine. I'm just giving her heads up. Actually, she did 8.
Okay, so apartments. A couple more things. Just, I know there's been a lot of talk about light pollution. I'd also, would ask you to keep that in mind. I don't, it's not my field of expertise, so I wouldn't know how to limit it. But maybe there's hours that can be set, so that when it's dusk, the lights turn off, or you only have, 1 or 2 lights instead of 5 or 10 lights. And the last thing I would say would be, like I said before, the R1 parcels, those are that's the primary residential district, right? So that's the 2-acre minimum. That makes up a lot, or the majority of the township. I would like to see you guys write into your plan that, because density is important in keeping, something rural. And even if we don't say rural, we just say something else. We say, look, this is a community. We love it. We love that there's wide open spaces. We want to keep the density as what it is. Maybe there's a way that you can say, look, if you, we are going to make it a priority for those R1 parcels to stay zoned R1. So, so that it's then harder for someone to go back and try to get their property, an R1 property zoned a different way. So and maybe
it would just be, look, the zoning commission has to have a more stringent procedure when someone comes forth with an application to change an R1 to anything else. But I feel that, density is important, that the R1 is the 2 acre minimum. And so the priority should be on keeping R1 parcels R1. And I'll put all this in an email, and that way, if you guys request it or want it, you'll have it. But thank you very much for volunteering to serve. Yes.
I thought I had it with me, but more than half of the lots in Hinckley are less than, or 1 acre or less. I think it's close to 60%. I was looking for the sheet, but I must have it at home. So there's everything. The R1 is not 2 acres. I mean, believe me.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I understand.
We operate under the state law. We're a township. Unless it's filed within the revised code, there's a lot of things we can't do because the code tells us exactly what we can do.
Sure.
So understand there's certain things that, like, frankly, in our lot, we've probably planted 40 trees over the years.
Yeah.
But that's our choice. So maybe the thing is to get somebody to convince them to plant the trees and all that sort of thing, which is, I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
But I don't see how you could make a developer or builder, for that matter,
Sure, but
do that kind of stuff. I mean, it sounds good, but
yeah,
there's some legal implications here.
sure. I mean, it does sound good, and that's actually, you're right. It does sound good, but to say that we couldn't ask a builder to plant 20 trees per each lot.
You could ask them.
We could, and we do ask them to do other things like landscaping. And look, I am not well versed, as well versed as you are in the.
Understand.
But I do think that it's something worth exploring. I think it's something we could certainly ask them to do. I don't know that I don't know that a developer would ever, take the township to court because we're asking them to plant trees. But
the township would back off right away if that was the position.
but I think that everything is about balance, right? And you have to balance the wants and needs of the community. And there's residents and there's businesses and there's people who, want to conserve land and nature and trees. And there's people who that's not as high a priority for them. But if you can figure out a way to meet in the middle, and sort of give everyone a little bit of what they want, I think that would be important. And I think in my mind, when I think of rural, like I said, I think of density and I think of trees, and I don't want to see 80 acres of trees cut down, but I don't want to see a conservation development either. So if there was a way to say, either you can't cut it down, but I don't think we can really say that either. We just say, you got to add it back in. You got to add it back in. And I don't think it's a huge ask.
Okay, just comment. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Previous to my living in Walden, I lived in McIntosh, so right off of Broadview Road.
Okay.
And I was on the HOA there, as I am on the HOA in Walden. And I can tell you that in McIntosh, there actually was in the covenant and deed restrictions as a homeowner, for every tree removed from your property. So not as a developer, but as a homeowner, you're required to plant 2.
Wow.
Now, no one enforced it. So I'm telling you, it was there.
That's cool.
So it can be.
We had the same thing, but it was 1-to-1.
Yeah.
And it's not enforced.
But the R1 is the largest, the percentage of parcels in Hinckley. The R1
I have
is
to
the
get my
largest
list
percentage.
because I have a listing of every one of them. And I can't.
The district, yes.
Yes,
The
it is
size,
the largest
the size of the lots, no.
Right, the size of lots have changed over the years,
Right.
but the R1 district is the largest.
Correct.
All right.
92%.
Right, 92%.
And of course, it's residential.
92% of the acreage is R1.
What is it?
90, according to this says 92% of the total acreage is R1.
Okay.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
I like try something that may be helpful.
Say your name one more time.
Oh, look at Jerry Walrath. I have a confession to make. I'm the enemy. Okay. I was on the zoning commission when conservation developments were adopted. Okay? For those of you who don't know, at that time, at least Dave can probably help me, at least two of our township trustees were Walter Robb and
Ron Rhodes.
Ron Rhodes. Two of the finest public servants I've ever worked with. There were 4 other people on the zoning commission besides me, all of whom were excellent people. I don't speak for myself, but they were. I resent any implication that those people were in any way bribed or on the tape or in any way benefited from adopting conservation developments. That was not the case. At the time, we had a plan, a comprehensive plan, in which the great majority of the residents of Hinckley indicated that they wanted, it was their desire to preserve as much open space as possible. And that was our intention in developing the conservation developments. We wanted to preserve open space. We wanted to do it. The people indicated that that's what they wanted. Now, is it possible that those good intentions have somehow gone awry, that something has been made of them which was not intended originally? Yeah, that's possible. But there was no evil or corrupt intent, no intention certainly to ruin Hinckley for the future. We thought we were doing a good thing. We preserved open space, which is what the people indicated that they wanted. And it's what we wanted to do. I also should say something else. When I was up here, I talked about bedroom communities, but I didn't define it. And I offered this as a suggestion to the committee. To me, a bedroom community is one in which more people who live in the community work outside the community than work in the community. If you could take a survey and find out whether or not that is true in Hinckley, I would suggest that that be done. That way we would find out if Hinckley's a bedroom community or it's not a bedroom community.
Isn't rural the opposite, where the people don't leave the community to go to work, they work within the community?
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily rural. Rural, I would say, is where people work on their own farms.
Okay.
That'd be rural. I should say this. My wife and I have lived in Hinckley for 30 years. We love Hinckley. We have a well and a septic. I would not want to see that change. We hear gunfire at all hours of the day and night, and I love it. I have no objection. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. That is how conservation developments came to be. Thank you.
Is the board, can we ask the comments? I just had a couple of questions real quick. Is there anybody in the room that doesn't want to change anything at all?
Me. But I want to hear from all of you. I really do.
And is there anybody that thinks we should leave everything exactly the way it is?
Oh, I wish everything could stay just the way it is, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
One thing that people haven't brought up is the way people work. And I'm going to address Mr. Waller. I thought you brought up some good points. Are we a bedroom community? Well, bedroom communities, I don't know if they're going to exist anymore because a lot of people are cyber workers. Nobody's really addressed that. And I mean, are people going to be allowed to do work in their homes on a computer, run a business, have UPS trucks, Amazon coming in and out of their homes?
I can tell you in my neighborhood it does. There's more Amazon and UPS trucks in my neighborhood than there are in the city of Cleveland.
Life is changing, and I haven't heard anybody address any of those changes. That's coming. We should really be looking ahead what's coming.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to have vision and foresight. I know a couple of you have talked about that, but you know, one of the things I think Mr. Manley mentioned, that there's a lot of things that we won't be able to control, regardless of how planful and thoughtful we are. I think someone mentioned, maybe it was you, Mr. Manley, about, you know, EPA and septic. Did you mention that?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
did.
think.
I know communities where they came in and said.
Yeah, I've witnessed it myself. I work in Wayne County. You want to talk about rural? I mean, I dodge buggies on my way to work. So it's definitely a rural community, but we also have a couple of bigger cities there, Worcester for one, 30,000 people. And the majority of the city of Worcester now is, you're not allowed to have it doesn't matter if you have 100 acres, a tenth of an acre, you cannot have a septic. When it ages out, when it's no longer passes inspection, you can't rebuild it, you can't repair it, you've got to tie into the sewer where the sewers are available. So I think that at some point, you know, those are things we're going to have to consider, that, you know, there may be conditions that change both by case law and general legislation outside of our township that we can't control, right? So even though I live in a conservation development, I'm a gun owner. I shoot, and I don't have any problem with, you know, hearing that. You know, I don't care what time of the night it is. Now, the guy on the next street who's blowing stuff up, but
Tannerite.
yeah, yes, it becomes a little disturbing at 2 a.m. But you know, but I don't think that, you know, I don't think that the needs of the residents are remarkably different whether you have, you know, 0.75 acres or 75 acres, right? I think that, you know, one of the things that drew me to the community was the just the calmness of it. Not necessarily, I don't want to be a farmer, but I have nothing against someone who does farm. Hell, I like to eat, right? Eat farms. But my point is, I think that we all love our community so much that do we want to make it so closed off that nobody else comes? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have been here, right? I mean, a bunch of us have only been here less than 10 years. So because it was attractive to come here, right? Yeah, there's people who've been here their whole lives. Your family, I know, has been here 100 years almost, right? 80. So that's great, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be inviting to other residents. Just my opinion, so.
But they also shouldn't have the right to tell him he can't farm a piece of property.
That he doesn't own?
But he doesn't own it.
That he doesn't own?
Yeah.
Can I come farm in your yard?
Right. No, I agree.
If I can eat the food.
Well, so, no, my point is, right, we all have property rights as property owners, right? If you own a piece of property, whatever's in your township or your city, village, whatever level of government you have, right, those are rights that you have as a property owner in the United States. But that's what built our country, was owning property, right? We won't get into the whole taking it away, but that's a whole other story. Hey, but seriously, I mean, it's a matter of, you know, if you have dominion over it, you can control it. Unfortunately, you know, I know that there's folks that live adjacent to some of these developments that didn't have much input into what got built next to them, right? And I respect that. Yeah, yeah.
That's what we want to do, is make sure that we protect the people that will be affected by these
Totally agree.
possible developments.
The reason I joined the HOA in McIntosh is because I thought it was too overreaching and it was infringing on other people's rights, right? Their right as a property owner. And I think that's the same thing here. You know, we all have property ownership rights that we own, and, you know, we need to act collectively to make sure that those are maintained. I'm off my soapbox.
I feel like I'm obligated to confess as well, much like my fellow neighbor there. I do have city water on Stony Hill, and I can tell you firsthand that it does contribute to population density because I have 6 kids now, and because I have city water. And there's no room for me in my house.
Build a barn.
Please step up. They can't hear you at home. Please step up.
All right, thank you. We're going for it. Hi, I'm Nancy Mandalakis, 1291 Stony Hill in Hinckley. We're neighbors.
We're neighbors.
Yes, we are. All right. I just want to say a couple things. First of all, I want you all, I have homework for you. Please go home and drive through Redwood. Please. I want you to see that.
Can I go home first?
No. You live there. I want you to see that in my eyes, it was clear cut for a development. In other words, the trees were emancipated, taken out, extracted. And sir, I understand you live there. Trust me, I had a son. We were in Strongsville. We had neighbors on all sides of me, and it was what we did to raise him in the Strongsville schools. So I understand. So now that we're here in Hinckley, I just want you to see the density of it. Now, I understand your home. You have your lot and then some conservation development right behind you in the back. And that was to protect, as you said, the legacy home development that went through, what is the name of it?
Legends. Right?
Legends, right. Beautiful development. So when that street went in, it kind of buffered over my way. And I said, well, couldn't you move it? Well, what am I going to do about those people? I promised them. Well, what about me? I've been living here for 15 years. So if you go down the cul-de-sac, take note. Go down the cul-de-sac, there'll be 2 more houses right there. And they abut the adjacent lots that were existing on Stony Hill. Yeah, I tried. I put my 2 cents in every time I met with a certain trustee. We met with him in his office, but just take a look. You owe it to yourselves as residents of Hinckley just not to repeat what has happened there. That's what I'm saying. If you're not clear cut, if you have 2-acre lots, you don't have to clear cut it. You can go in, do your house, however long you want that driveway, and come out and leave those existing trees. All right, thank you very much. Good night.
I want to make one other point, please. So you guys that have farms, I'm sure you're not dodging trees, right?
Oh, yeah.
The general space is open?
No.
So
Me,
we're
yes.
mostly
Houses and trees. I have an orchard.
well, you're an orchard, that's okay. If you're doing regular agrarian farming, those are going to be open fields.
Absolutely. I consider a tree in my field to be a weed.
That's right. That's right. So
I agree with him, but ours is mostly forested. We are a tree farm technically also.
okay. So my question is surrounding if you were to take and parcel yours off to and you had 100 acres and it was a conservation development, there would be no trees to cut because there aren't any that exist.
Well, let me just respond by saying that certainly not my 100 acres or close to it, or Dave's would be entirely field. I have about 25 acres of woods in the back.
Okay.
It's what you're saying is perhaps relevant down by Wayne County,
Yeah.
but here there's very few fields that even come close to 100 acres.
Sure. I think that's kind of my point, though, that we don't have those 100-acre farms. I think we determined there was less than a few, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's a big fear that we're going to go and clear cut hundreds of acres of trees, is my point.
I completely agree with that.
Okay.
Even the golf courses would not be a problem.
Yeah, I don't know how many trees were taken out at Skyland, but I can't imagine it was thousands. I'd be surprised if it was hundreds.
For zoning and the trustees, is there any way to limit that you can't combine properties or anything like that for nothing?
I think that goes back to the property rights ownership. Like you can go buy adjacent parcel to you to add to your farm if you wanted, right?
Right.
But if it's already zoned something else, you could.
I was just curious.
The way that the township is run with our zoning commission and our BZA and our trustees is let me just recap it for everyone. The BZA is our quasi judicial body. So their job is to look at our zoning code and determine if certain things can be applied to specific projects, right? They're interpreting the code. Does that make sense? Zoning commission is the body that is your legislative body that will write the code. So they're working on the policies and the procedures that determine how our zoning looks in Hinckley Township. The trustees are your executive branch, and we do not have anything to do with zoning, period. We don't know what businesses are coming in. We don't know what developments are coming in. We know what's being proposed. It does not come to us at all. We do not make any decision on it whatsoever, unless the zoning commission comes to us with a change of zoning or a text amendment change to the zoning commission or to the zoning code. So the trustees have no say in how those lots are consolidated or split or anything. And that's a common misnomer, is that we have this power to do the work of the people when really our job is to appoint those boards to do that work. Any questions about that process?
You could, if we could add too, zoning is based on the health, welfare, and safety.
Correct.
So when you're talking about all these things, does it fit under health, does it fit under the welfare of the people, or does it fit under safety? And that's the code, if you will, of the basic code of the zoning.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll get real quick. Mark Kowalski, 1040 Center Road. First question, do we, the conservation developments seem to be a hot topic for everybody. Do we have to allow them? Does they have to be, do we have to let developers come in and offer that up? That seems to be the, I look around and that's what it's getting everybody fired up. Anybody who showed up anyway.
To be honest, it's my understanding that the reason that they were incorporated into the code was because it supported the comprehensive plan, as Mr. Walrath stated.
Okay.
And because the first conservation development, remember, there's only 3.
Right. No, I understand.
Wakefield Run, there was a discrepancy, and that entire project went to a judge.
Okay.
Hinckley Township lost that court battle. And so the judge determined what our township should look like. And that's why the conservation development text went into the code, was so that we could determine what Hinckley Township should look like, not a court somewhere.
Okay. So we kind of got outsmarted the first time. Or so, I mean, somebody had a better lawyer than us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I mean, there's got to be a way we make sure we close any loopholes. We got to look at everything that allowed that to happen. So basically, we don't have to end up going to court again and obviously making a lot of people angry over somebody getting rich, more than likely. And I guess the only other thing I want to say is, call it bedroom community rule. We're in a very special place. You'll be hard pressed to find another one in Ohio, let alone the United States, I believe. I think things are slipping away from us, not just Hinckley, but everywhere. You don't want to have to look back in 20 years and say, those were the good old days. I wish we would have done more and kept it the same. So that's
help us. What's slipping away?
Well, when you develop something, you overwhelm your police, your fire, your schools. All of a sudden, we're getting taxed more on everything. People are telling you can't shoot your firearm. You can't have a bonfire. I mean, little by little.
The bonfire thing is Ohio, and yes, we can shoot firearms.
Well, I know, but then you get for now, but you keep losing, and people come in from the city complaining. I don't want to hear it.
People complain all the time about shooting.
I know, right? So, and the more people you get, the more complaints you're going to
get. The bonfire is the Ohio EPA. You can only have a campfire, and you have to have food. You cannot have open burning.
And I understand that.
Okay, so help us, give us something to work with. What's slipping away?
I think the quaintness, the fact that, now half the time to pull out of my driveway, I got to wait 3 minutes instead of, it's overcrowding, I think. And I think we have to really look at that, the state of the community we are. I know we can't stop new things from coming in, but, let's pump the brakes a little bit and make sure we're not just overwhelming everything we have to where, now, I mean, I see big, beautiful houses going up everywhere. So my taxes should be going down, right? No, they're asking me for more for this, for that, and the other thing. It doesn't seem to be working to existing residents' benefits, I guess. I mean, if that makes, maybe it doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of how I get in my head.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Would you tell me again what street?
Right down the street, Center Road.
Center Road, okay. And I know some comments about all the traffic on Center Road, but there's a lot of development over in Brunswick, and if they want to get over to Solon, they don't get on Interstate 71. They go down 303, and then they get on another interstate. So a lot of that traffic just isn't because Hinckley is developing or not developing too fast. It's just traffic in the suburbs around us. Understand that.
Well, I do, but you know, I think every little bit helps everything we look at for ourselves.
Sure.
You know.
I'd like to get.
But thank you for your specific comments. We appreciate that.
I'd like to get some feedback from the audience. One thing I've watched, I really don't understand. You have this drug mart, people off and arms over that. I think prior to that, there was a senior housing thing.
Tire Max.
Okay, years and years ago, I lived this subdivision, and they put a nursing home, an elder care facility, 4 houses down from me. It was never a problem. It was just elderly people. They had their own ambulance, and the only traffic we got was families visiting their elderly folks. No kids in the schools, no burden on the fire department, and it raised a lot of taxes for the town. And people are complaining, okay, the town that I'm talking about, if you were a developer, they fire up the kettle, start boiling the tar, getting the feathers, okay? If you're a developer, but they rolled out the red carpet for this elderly housing facility. I'm trying to and it's not like cluster homes for people that are 55. These are people that are non-ambulatory. Was there opposition in this town for something like that, or something like that's never been presented, or it's never been zoned in this town? I mean, uses where you're not putting a burden on the school systems and raising taxes. I mean, farms don't put school taxes. The elderly facilities don't either. But I would think there'd be certain areas of the town that you might be able to place those, like where drug mart's going.
Oh, there's one going in. Are you talking about the one that's going in? There's one going in right next to yours. But you understand, it's an apartment complex where one person has to be 55 in the home.
That's an apartment complex.
Right.
No, I'm talking about
I think you're talking about
assisted living,
which is not.
I don't think a single person would be against that.
Right.
I think every single person I know that it's against apartment complexes.
Right.
We would have loved that.
We would have loved it. You know what, I'm gonna have you guys come up to talk just so that we've got 19 people virtual. So if you're gonna speak, I just ask you to come up to the microphone, please.
Come on up. Come on, John.
I will tell you, Sean Papera, Westman Trace, if it was proposed as a nursing home, I don't know a single person that would have been against that situation. And I'll tell you, like, that's when, now granted, my kids are a little older now, but I got involved when this all kind of started and came into fruition. I think the apartment complex issue is the issue. No one wants an apartment complex does not fit in Hinckley. I don't care where it is. It does not fit the character of Hinckley.
So help us. How do we tighten the zoning code? What part of the zoning code do you want to
So I think
tighten?
we need to define density first and foremost. I don't know what that definition is. I think that's something that collectively we need to define. So an apartment complex is a high density area. So I think we need to define what density means and then decide, okay, 118 units times potentially 4 people. That is too high. That does not fit within our plan. So we need to, again, define density, define what is acceptable in a certain amount of area, and work from there backwards.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, I would guess along 130th Street on the Brunswick side, what's going to be going on there and how do we transition from Brunswick to Hinckley? I mean, you're not going to, are you having rural farm areas right across from office buildings?
We already have an industrial park on the north side.
Well, you have Aldi there, and
then all
that's
those
worked out
other-
very well.
Whatever those other buildings that are along the front there.
Opportunities and place.
I think where the concern came up was you took what was a very, and I'm going to call it a very rural corner with Buzzard's Roost and Caddyshack, and then land. And then you had the industrial park that the senior housing facility that is going in is going to be a high density. It is going to be a perceived burden for the safety forces because you're going to have, and I don't remember how many places. 117 individual tied together places where people could live. It's 55 and over, but you have to have one person that qualifies. And I believe it was 80% has to be 55 and over. So yes, that is a burden on support services here. That wasn't what was originally envisioned there, and it's a big change. And you had, and I'm going to mispronounce the name, but the one neighbor, super nice. It's upsetting. He's one of the neighbors that's impacted because of the water and drainage, and all of a sudden he had nothing, and now he's going to have something right there.
Yeah.
So I think the way that one came in, they didn't, it was zoned for it. And that's something that maybe could be addressed in the future. That area was zoned for it. Unfortunately, it's going in and, so be it. But I think the point was raised that let's take a look at what's zoned where and make sure that it fits in with the density and the long-term plans, what everybody wants us to be. What's going in? Senior housing.
Say again.
Anyone else?
She was.
You gotta come up to the mic, please.
I ain't going up there.
Hello again. To the issue that we're talking about right now, one of the reasons I brought up at the very beginning of my conversation earlier is we really need to identify what kind of income is going to be generated by whatever we're doing. If we're talking, if I heard you correctly, that the nursing home, we're not going to get any income from the nursing home?
No, it's not a nursing home.
Apartment complexes.
Housing.
It's senior.
Whatever it might be.
I think Martha's presentation, well, that's going to be covered in it about here's where the income comes for the township. So I think that meeting will open up and help everybody understand that a little bit more.
Good, because it's extremely important, whatever decision is made, how much income is going to be generated for the community. And I think that that's a consideration, because if we're thinking about putting something in that's going to impact our expenses, like the police and the fire department and so forth, but we're not getting any income to pay for it, that's a problem for me. I'm a finance person. That's a problem
you
for
get
me.
into the legal ramifications that if it's zoned for it, you can't stop it legally.
Yeah, then that's all the more reason then you need in your zoning rules and regulations, perhaps you should put some kind of clause or something of the nature of whatever goes in needs to generate income for the community. If you can do that.
And we're a township, unless it's covered in the Ohio Revised Code.
Yeah. So, but it's extremely important because I'm seeing all these things that people are talking about. I'm saying, where's the income coming from? Who's paying for this? Is it me? Or is it somebody else? I remember in one of the meetings I attended, Ron and I attended, and one of the former trustees was really pushing to have a new building built for either the fire department or for the police department. And the police officer kept saying, or excuse me, the chief of police kept saying, no, we don't really need that. In the meantime, in that same meeting, they're talking about giving our important employees, our first responders, like a $3 raise. And I'm saying, wait a minute, we got this thing turned around a little bit. The most important thing is our first responders first. And, this $1.5 million revenue to reinvent the police department or whatever they were talking about, it didn't make sense. So
they're totally different lines. So, and I hope that you go to Martha's thing. It's February 12th at 9 or 10. We don't know yet. But your fire line is completely different than your police line. And each department has different lines for salaries, contracted services, vehicles, all types of things. So, a police addition, which was turned down, by the way, because it's too outside the budget.
Yeah.
Does not have.
But how could he even have brought that up? I mean, it just didn't make sense at all. But I think I hear what you're saying. Listen, I don't mean to cut you short, but I've looked at the financial statements that were audited by the state of Ohio, and I think that was done like in 1915.
Just posted the new one last week.
Okay, good. Because I think it's really important that we really do track what kind of revenue is coming into the community and where is it coming from, and then how is it going to be used? Because in that way, we will know how to better allocate what we can afford without tearing the city apart, because we're overextending our community. And that's huge.
But that can't be the only thing.
We're a township.
Beg your pardon?
But that can't be the only thing
Only thing what?
that we use as a guiding tool.
Oh, of course not. Absolutely.
Because if we want to really focus on maintaining mass quantities of land as much as possible,
Sure.
they generate zero income.
Right. But I mean, we all know the cities that have gone bankrupt or nearly close to bankrupt because people were not keeping their eye on the fiscal situation, the
Completely
physical
agree.
health.
Completely agree.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Studer.
Yeah. While you're there, I'd like to address that issue.
Isidore, can someone give
Sure.
mic?
Quite frankly, I think the trustees and the fiscal officer do a great job of controlling things in this community. They publish the information twice a month that you can look at. So I really think what you're saying is maybe just not quite accurate. I think that information is readily available, and there's only so much that can be done with that budget anyway. And that is reviewed twice a month at the trustees meeting.
I mentioned that report when I came up here first time.
Right.
That report only shows what's being paid out. It's like a checking account almost. It's not showing you where the income is coming in, how much income we have. It's not really a financial statement. So it's not complete. It only shows you about half of the picture.
Marcia, we have appropriation, revenue, paid statements.
Right.
All of those reports are every 2 weeks.
Right.
We have the exact documentation of the exact percentage.
Is that getting to the residents? Is that posted? Is that being posted?
Anytime, you just let me know and I will send it to you.
Already. I think that you need to post it. I mean, if you're going to put down, if they're once every 2 weeks, and it says, okay, these are the expenses that are being paid, do an accurate balance sheet. My goodness, do an accurate income.
Well, they do. They do. They do. They do. Yeah, it's just.
I will have to stand up for Martha.
Good. I'm looking forward to reading those documents then. So, for example, is there somewhere where we can see if we did we get revenue from the COVID monies?
Yeah,
sure.
Where is that going? How is that going to be used?
That's the detail in Martha's stuff. I think the difficulty you have is you want a lot of information. This township is limited at how much information in storage, but anything that anybody wants, All they have to do is ask.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll definitely do that. Thank you.
I just happen to have a copy from the last trustees
Yeah.
meeting, and yes, there's pages of payments, but there's also a page on fund status, which has each of your revenue lines and what the balances are.
But that's not on the website. It's not.
Well,
Because it's only.
I'm just saying though, it is reported twice a month,
Yeah.
so it's
But
there.
on the
it is
website, you're only seeing half of the story.
The website is a work in progress.
Thank you.
Just address
That's
that.
gonna be my next comment. Yeah. Thank you.
I have something additional too.
This is part-time government too.
Just for 1 second, to clear up the CARES Act funds. We received almost $500,000 in CARES Act funds.
CARES Act.
$459,873.47. And if you would like me to send to you exactly where every single penny went, I would be happy to do that. I'm the one who facilitated it, made sure that everything was in legal compliance so that when we did get audited, we would be in compliance. The trustees work diligently with our fiscal officer to be sure that we are always dotting our I's and crossing our T's. But I'm happy to provide any reports or things that you need. I just need your email at the end of the meeting.
Thank you very much, and I will take that.
Yeah.
You have something else?
Additionally, yes. Mr. Pearl started out with a comment about the comprehensive plan not being broken, but, obviously we're doing an assessment and looking at it. And I completely agree. I think that, I did take the initiative to go through it. I had a copy of it prior to the meeting. And I get this sense of this great urgency and things are going to hell in a handbasket. But when I go through this, the population projections that are on here in what was to be 2020 were actually below what they anticipated. Okay. And, I know everybody's concerned about growth, but if you really step back and see what has really transpired in the way of permits and growth within the community, it's not crazy. I feel like it's just like everything's out of hand, and that's kind of the urgency that I feel here. And, when in addition to the plan, they talked about senior housing, and this plan, that was actually one of the things that was on the plan. It says expand opportunities to grow senior housing. So these are the people back at that time in 2015 that were projecting what they thought might be something we should look at for the community. Enhance the town center was another. And I'm not saying I'm for the water, but, what do you do with the town center if we're trying to enhance it a little bit? And quite frankly, I think we need something there. There's really no identifiable entity to our community in a lot of ways. But I just, I think between the social media, and if you look, we have 16 people here. There's 8,000 residents. So, not that I don't think we shouldn't evaluate these things, and there aren't some valid points here, but I just feel like there's this huge push and things are bad, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think our trustees have done a good job at really trying to keep things in check and plan properly. And I'm sure there's some things that need to be addressed on here, but it's my observation. I want to say it. So.
I do want to add one thing publicly about the town center, and I don't know your name and I apologize, but what you've done with Binky Commons and all the work that you've done there, the renovation, that's phenomenal. And thank you for it, because that's something where you preserve the building and we're able to keep the character of it and did a phenomenal job. So thank you.
I promise I have one more thing to say. This is in response to Mr. O'Neill. I think there's definition of the senior housing. I think a lot of the issue was that it is zoned business, but there are these are going to be residential homes in a business district. And that's, of course, senior housing. My husband's very offended that 55 is now senior, but that's besides the fact. But I think that's where I will only speak for myself, feel that there is a loophole that could be closed. No residential in a business district, no apartment complexes. Thank you.
I have a comment. Could we back up a second about senior housing? Obviously near and dear to my heart. Okay, because that's my property that we've sold and everybody knows that. The apartment moniker that's been placed, these are cluster homes. Okay, they're rented, thus the word apartment. Okay, and if that causes the pain, I'm sorry, but that's the business model that most of the senior housing that goes in Northeast Ohio today follows. Okay, that the company that is putting this in, they have 10,000 units throughout the Midwest. And this is how they run their business. Okay, and it's a very nice, we think it's a good transition from the industrial side of the township into the residential side. And I'll also point out that the past comprehensive plan identified those parcels as where they wanted to put it. Okay, so I think we're following the guides of the township in what we were trying to do here. So the apartment moniker, I think, is a misnomer. They're cluster homes. There will be 117 of them, and we think it'll be a great transition into the township. Okay, I'd love to keep the fields, but we're going to develop it. And that's just my message.
Is it strictly 55 and over?
Yes.
And
the definition of senior housing in the United States is 55 and over, 80%. So you can have 20% that are not. So if you're 55,
people with kids and all that.
correct. If you're 55 and your spouse is 50, there's one against the 80%.
Now, do the elderly residents in Hinckley have the first crack at these places?
No, it's a business. Okay, you can't do that. You can't really say, if you live in Hinckley, you get to live here first, but it will be available. And I think as the committee, I think the question becomes, is that enough within the township? And where else would you put it? Okay, I mean, they're 2,500 square foot homes. That's pretty big. It's not an apartment. The mindset of apartment is where I think people get all fired up about it.
But it's still classified as an apartment.
It's a rental.
Yeah.
It's a rental.
If you were to go to banking and to go to a bank and get financing for that,
Right.
they will look at those as apartments.
Correct. But again, that's the business that they're putting in there. Okay, so we'll watch it.
Excuse my ignorance. I'm up on the subject somewhat, but the residents will have no ownership, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's why they're apartments. They rent them.
So it's really no different than an assisted living home.
Correct.
In that regard, you don't own it. Somebody said that you business versus living there, right? I don't remember who, but it doesn't matter. But the point is, assisted living, you don't. And if it's one big building with multiple tenants,
That's nursing care. There's no nursing care here. There's one person that's 55 or older.
not necessarily nursing care. No,
There's no associated nursing care.
there's skilled nursing.
Yes, I'm very familiar.
Okay, but not all assisted living has nursing care. It may just have helpers that are not trained by the state as STNAs, nothing like that, right? It just,
This is not that.
no, but my point is, I think what we said earlier, someone said that if it was a skilled care facility, that would be okay. But the point was that because you would have residents living in a business district, it's the same thing. You have residents living in a business district. I'm not going there. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying, if we're going to talk about language, that's important, I guess.
Well, what does the town want? And then if we want this, how do we describe it in a zone law? Right?
Yes, I agree. As long as we're still working within the confines of the overarching laws, right? We can't, regardless of how much we want to say certain things, you just can't.
As a
Right?
township.
Right. Like you had mentioned earlier, could we reserve it for Hinckley residents? No, it's called discrimination. It's against the law.
You can't do that.
No, I know you don't. I'm just saying we have to be careful that we can't say certain things because they're discriminatory, right? There's a whole.
Say that to get rid of the 20%, you couldn't say it's strictly assisted living and then that 20% would go away. Or no, that wouldn't.
I think you're kind of mixing things together there. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort.
Yeah, the 20% is dictated by the law. Okay, so
Even if it was
we have to follow that guideline.
assisted living, you would still have to have that 20%, right?
No, that's a different business model. If it was assisted living, yeah.
Who monitors the 20%? Who oversees the 20%?
Federal government?
Who's in charge of that?
The Hinckley Township zoning,
The zoning.
the
inspector.
BZA said that they would monitor the 20%
Like, how do they
in some
check them?
capacity. That's part of the condition of them having this facility there, is that the BZA will monitor that 20%. Now, keep in mind, that's Brunswick City Schools. Keep in mind that if you go to an assisted living community anywhere in Medina County, they have far more police and fire calls than this. When our police and fire chiefs researched this specific company and this specific model and design, they said on average, it was 30 more calls a year, which is no different than any other development anywhere else in Hinckley Township. Keep in mind that 55 is pretty young.
Yeah.
What is your,
What do you think the
with your
prospects are of
projections, your planning
annexation?
projections? How much tax revenue is going to come to Hinckley 5 years from now?
Actually, that's what Martha's going to project for us, I would believe, knowing what's coming in, and then she can project the dollar amount, because you're absolutely right. We have to look and say, not just the senior housing segment, but if we look at all of the open space in our township and we start to develop, what's the dollar and cents impact of doing that? Because then all of your services will go up accordingly. We have to pay for that. Okay, and I believe that's the charge of what Martha's going to give to us, because we have to look at it as a group and say, okay, can we afford to do this? I believe we can, and we have to be selective in how we grow it.
And she will have it broken down how much projected revenue, income tax revenue is going to come.
There's no income
There
tax
is
for a
no
township.
income.
Are you paying income tax in Hinckley Township?
Property tax.
Property tax, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all property tax.
Liquor tax and sales tax.
I would assume she will.
She will once everything
does
is
now.
finalized and we can
Yeah.
see what those revenues are. And additionally, one of the things that we told Pride One when they came in is that we will be tracking those calls to police and fire. So our first responders, if we see a significant amount of calls to that development, we will be billing them.
What are the prospects do you think of once the drug mart is built, and I'm sure it will be, and once senior housing is built? What do you think the prospects are of Brunswick annexing that area to leverage that additional tax base? And what would the impacts be?
My opinion, it's already a business. They would have annexed it already. It's already a business. It would have been annexed already. Buzzard's Roost is there. Caddyshack is there.
Buzzard Roost is hardly comparable to the drug mart.
But I'm saying, they're both businesses. So it's just a business taking over a business. It would have already been annexed.
Absolutely.
I think Jim's got a valid concern, and I think just hopefully the township does what they can to prevent it.
I can't vouch for that. Suggested to me that.
I'm a citizen. Susan Wilson, Far Road. One quick question. Do these 85?
I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't think the microphone is on.
Is it on?
No, it is on, but we can't hear you because of your mask.
Do the 85 people in this senior housing development get the rights to vote for issues that we do as a community?
Yeah.
Or are they citizens even though they're not owners?
They have leases, they're residents.
There's other rentals in the township.
Yeah.
Pick that up with your congressman.
I promise I won't be as long this time. This is Nikki Long again. So two things. One, I know there's not a lot of people here. I think part of that is because this was only scheduled a week ago. So I would ask that when you guys start scheduling your subsequent meetings with the public, if you do it, maybe a month in advance, put it in the Hinckley record if you can, so that more people know about it. I think it's January and not a lot of people knew about it.
I think it's just.
Understand the steering committee didn't schedule it.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
You're looking at us,
Okay.
And we've done the best we can to advertise.
We just work
for
here.
short staff.
I think it's these 3 dates that we decided on already, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that she mentioned earlier, so 2/22, 3/29, and 4/26.
So is that for public interaction, those meetings?
There will be public interaction. I told you that. All of these meetings are public.
Public, right, open to the public, but
Correct.
can we interact with the
Public
committee?
meeting, public interaction is encouraged.
Okay.
That's what we want as a committee. Absolutely, We won't always agree on everything.
Sure.
Like, I'm sure I've offended people today. It's okay. Right? People have offended me. So, that's just part of being in a public forum, right?
Welcome to being a trustee.
Absolutely. There you go. No, I get it. Hey, I got 9 sisters, man. No. I'm just a loud mouth.
He was part of an HOA. We nominated him.
Two HOAs. 2 HOAs. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
That's okay.
Says that all the time.
So, and then when I spoke before about balance, the one thing I forgot was, I think the township could do a better job at balancing the need for business growth here and the need, of the residents to keep it, the density low. I would like to, and again, I moved out here because I don't like big government. I don't really like regulation. I don't like taxes. But I think that, the government has a role in protecting residents and so I would like to see focus on, developing the business districts, certainly the one downtown. I would like to see, someone in the township, whether it's a trustee, I know that they have a lot of stuff to do. I'd like to see the creation of some sort of role that someone fills where their job is to look for, again, everything's about incentivizing. Look for tax incentives, look for grants, figure out a way to draw businesses to the community. Not by, if we want, we have these spaces for businesses. I think we need to maybe be better at advocating what we have to offer to get businesses to come to, the places where we allow businesses in the district, in the township, especially in the town center. So I would like to see someone who took that on and said, yeah, we got these grants through the state of Ohio, these grants through the county of Medina. We've got, tax incentives in these specific areas that might help, with the business part of that. So that's what
What kind of businesses?
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask. What kind of business?
What? Yeah. What?
That's 3 of us. That's 3 questions in one.
Would I?
Yeah, just
Yes,
yeah,
as a resident, that you would prefer.
Yeah.
I think more. I would like to see. I know we got a donut shop. I'd like to see. Somewhere where people can, meet. So whether it's a coffee shop where you can sit down.
There's no water, so that's a problem.
Well, but there are restaurants and salons. There's water intense businesses that are able to survive downtown, and they figure it out.
But what's there is really a way to.
Sure. Well, what do you mean?
Well, if you're talking about Foster's, who's obviously a restaurant and bar, they're surviving with what they have. But
Right.
for somebody to come into town and put a restaurant or expand the donut shop, which, they have to fit under the health department's rules and regulations, which have been modified and changed over the last 20-some years. And water plays a part of it.
Sure. Water.
Are you talking new buildings or redoing old buildings?
No, I'm talking about what is there,
Mhm.
what is there now.
Enhancing what's there, is that?
No, I'm talking about developing a role within the township where someone takes on, incentivizing businesses to come here. If we have vacant space that's existing, it would be nice for someone to go and do all the research, talk to the people at the county, talk to the state of Ohio, find out what can we do?
That's
what
economic
resources
growth
do we have?
Economic growth through the county, that's all of those.
Okay, but there should be someone in the township that can be.
The Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce.
Come to the Chamber of Commerce meetings.
All right.
It's open to, you can be a member, just as for any,
Sure. I mean, I don't want to be a member. I guess I don't.
Bring your thoughts, they'll listen.
You can still come. You don't have to be a member.
That might be a way to, fill some of the spots downtown, is just by figuring out how can we, what monies are available that we can offer to people to bring them.
It's a legitimate point. I mean, I run a medium-sized business and, when we were looking for additional space, I was certainly interested in who was going to give me something.
Because right. So if you can't force someone to do something, you can incentivize it.
So are you for or against water and sewer in the center of Hinckley?
I'm against it. I'm against it anywhere else besides where it is now.
I have a question for the audience.
And part of what rural, for me, when I think of what is rural, I think of wells and septics. Now, I'm not saying that, but that's, that's what I think of. When I think of water and sewer, I think of high density, cramming people in, and that's not why I'm here. That's not why, the house I'm living in, like Sean said, I mean, they're gonna have to take me out feet first. So I'm here to stay, and I bought here because I want to live on top of anyone else. And that's why I think most people here love about this community is the low density. So that's why I don't want water and sewer. But
Thank you,
I'm
Ms.
sorry,
Holmes.
Mr. Pearl, I interrupted you.
No, I interrupted you. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to see more water lines extended in Hinckley? Thank you. That's a great response.
Did any of you guys go to that water meeting? How many years ago it was?
What water meeting? There's quite a few.
There's been several.
When they were proposing bringing water into Hinckley.
Who was proposing?
It's already here.
Well, no, but I'm talking quite a long time ago. They want, where I live on Ledge Road, there's maybe 5 houses. It would have cost me $50,000 for them to run a line down the street for me to tie in water.
You're talking about a township meeting?
No, it was the water people came. It was at the school. It was.
Who were the water people?
The county.
Edina County Water?
It was a hell of a long time ago.
Yeah, you're talking about when Brunswick was going to do the deal. They were reselling Cleveland Water. We went to court.
Exactly, yeah.
We went to court, and we eventually got Brunswick to back off after some time. But the deal that was made then by the trustees at that time is that if the water line came by you, you did not have to tie in. And it's still, well, I don't know how it is for some of these newer things, but that was the way it was set up. So if the water line comes by, or did come by, anyhow, maybe it's still the same. I'm not.
Oh, they won't come down my street because.
Well.
Does anyone want to talk about water anymore?
Actually, when I talked to the water and sewer department at the county level, I had specifically wanted a history of the water in Hinckley, and they brought it down. Is it Bellis Road? I think it's Bellis Road as a project to see if people wanted it. Right. And supposedly everyone said that they were going to tie in. That was phase 1 of bringing water into Hinckley, and no one tied into it. And when I talked to the county 2 years ago, they said, we will not do it again in Hinckley Township. I don't know where the water conversation's coming from. We got a grant last year that's about $900,000. We've only received half the funds. The last trustee board didn't even discuss what they would potentially do with those funds. But it can be used for water infrastructure. And I think it was reported maybe in a newspaper or something that we were going to bring water and sewer in, but that was never a conversation that ever was had.
Correct. So when we're talking about
100% correct.
So when we're talking about the developments, then the water and sewage that came down 303 obviously to service my neighborhood, the other neighborhoods, where does that end? There?
It ends there, yeah.
That's it.
And the developer spent a plethora of money
Yeah.
to get it there. Anything else?
Well, since we're talking about water and sewer, there's a town called Litchfield. Very, very rural. Very rural. But there's portions of Litchfield where everybody's septic systems have failed. Their houses are being condemned. So you have to think really long term. What do you do with wastewater? Okay. And then when you have wells near septic, you have public health issues. And that might not be in the control of the town. So I don't think you just put a blind eye to it. I think you manage it the best way you can. Now, one town I'm familiar with, they don't eliminate the possibility of sewer altogether, but what they did is in order to put sewer in, you have to bring it to a town vote, where you have to get the entire town to vote for it to do it. It's on the ballot. And they did that after a college tied into another town, and it scared the bejesus out of everybody, like the sewer's coming. Okay, but they left an option where if you really needed to do it, you could do it. But everybody has to vote for it.
Are you saying 100%?
No, majority.
No, just majority.
Just like every vote.
Like every.
I'm not sure. It might have been a certain threshold. I don't know if it was 51% or if it was 70%.
Right.
Okay, but I don't know if that's against Ohio law.
Voting law.
For a township.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that.
I don't know.
There are only certain things that can go on a ballot for us. And I don't believe that that's one of them.
Okay, the other question I had is, okay, I watched some of the stuff that's happened with the elderly housing and all that. And it seems like everything comes crashing right into zoning board. Is there a planning board in the town, or is the town allowed to have a planning board where a plan is previewed before it goes on to zoning board of appeals? You know, I know some towns, even if you need zoning, you don't have to get zoning variance, you still have to meet architectural requirements or a lot of other requirements with a planning board. I don't think there is a planning board.
Our zoning commission acts as a planning board. The BZA is the first step in every process because they're the ones that can issue the permits to allow the business to begin. We have a conditional use permit that they have to acquire before they can even begin their project. So they come in with concept plans and ask for variances if needed, and they ask for that conditional use permit. Then it goes to the zoning. Yeah, then it goes to the zoning commission, and once it's approved, and the zoning commission serves as our planning commission that can say, yeah, you know, we really want mounding here, and we want 10-foot trees here. So they're the ones that solidify that concept plan and make it a final plan.
We don't want garage doors facing the street.
There is a zoning commission or an approval planning board in Medina County.
There is.
Also, that the developments have to go in front of. Not businesses, but a development does. Right.
Not every project goes to that commission.
Correct.
On the size of the development.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions, comments? Step right up.
How you doing? Carl Castle III, 1388 Ridge Road, Hinckley, and also 858 Center Road, Hinckley. So, my father has drawn Binky the Buzzard in the Hinckley Recorder since 81. He moved here in the 70s. He moved here because my grandfather wanted to go fishing in Hinckley Lake. And so he brought him out here fishing and found the property and built the house. And, for years and years, my parents were divorced. So I grew up in Strongsville, North Royalton, Homestead Falls. And, as we would drive, we would always drive by the beverage store. And I said, one of these days I'm going to own that place. And that's how I ended up owning it. And, last 3 years, me and my business partner rebuilt the building and, put a lot of time into it. And I would hate to see Hinckley turn into a Strongsville or North Royalton. And that's what we're all here for. So, and I'll keep on thinking of different ways of helping you guys come up with ideas.
As a businessman in Hinckley, what would help your business? Give us an idea. Sidewalks?
Parking.
Yeah. Okay. I smile, but I hear you.
I mean, the water's.
So you're advocating for like a 10-story parking garage behind your building?
Only 35 feet high.
How about an electric charging station?
Oh, good.
But, the parking's a big issue downtown.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. But, the water is great. I mean, the water, we have no problem with the water.
You have a well?
Help us, where's your water come from? Well, your own well on that property.
Yeah, and then our septic, we have a commercial septic system. But, the biggest thing is the parking.
So as a business, then you're subjected to the quarterly testing of a public well, correct? Because you serve public, right?
Yeah, we have, our septic system gets tested 3 times a month.
Wow.
I was going to say it's every couple of weeks.
About $800 a month.
Right.
Wow.
Our water gets tested every couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are big expenses for the building.
Yeah, for any business, really. Yeah, no, I get it. I'm on a well at my business and we test weekly. Ours is big. Our building's 600,000 square feet.
And then if you have somebody that comes and tests it and they don't test it right, then you gotta come back and test
Absolutely.
it.
Yep, totally get it, yeah.
But besides that, I mean, it's great.
Like Jim Bilowski said, thank you for.
Yeah, it's an awesome job.
Looks really great.
It looks so good. It looks so good.
All right. If you don't have anyone else, I think we'll wrap it up.
Quick question. Is there an email address that everyone watching could, and myself included, I guess, if I had any more questions, it wasn't going to be able to.
Why can't you send it to you?
I'm the main contact as the trustee who's a part of the group today. I'm part of the committee. The last trustee board put me on because I'm here for another 2 years for my term. So my email is the best one. It's maugustine@twp.org, and I do not expect you to remember that.
It's on the website.
It's on the website.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can give you my card too before you go. Yeah. You're welcome.
Melissa?
Yeah.
Could you bring the big map in sometime, like for one of the meetings, so we could see it?
Yes, I believe that will happen with OHM when the planning group
Okay,
comes in.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns? All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting at 9:33 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by